Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for braving the weather to come to this Monday, January 26th, 2026 meeting of the Bennington Select Board. We are on the third floor, multi-purpose room at the Bennington Fire Facility on River Street in Bennington. My name is Tom Haley. I have the honor of chairing this board. I will ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with Nancy.
Hi, Nancy White.
Good evening, Sarah Perrin.
Hello, Jim Sullivan.
Good evening, I'm Jackie Matz.
Good evening, I'm Clark Adams.
And I'm Ed Woods.
Also with us is Town Manager Dan Monks. We have Nancy Lively, who is fully prepared to take excellent minutes. And we have Josh Boucher from Cat TV, who will be making sure this gets out to the public. Anyone that did not want to drive down here on a very snowy evening. All right, so we will start this evening, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Jackie, would you lead us this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And next, I'll ask Ed to read our vision statement, which guides our work.
I gotta find it. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from our outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. All right, next we have the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of January 3rd, 10th, and 12th. I'm just double checking. Everyone was here for all three of those. Also the warrants and the licenses. Did everyone have a chance to review the updated list of licenses?
Yes.
Okay. So any comments on the consent agenda?
I'm trying to, I have a couple of small.
Clark, go ahead.
Which day are we doing? Are we doing the budget meeting ones or the standard meeting?
We can take all three at the same time. I think we can handle that. Yeah, could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Thank you.
So moved.
Ed, second? Jackie?
Second.
Thank you. Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah. On the third here, line 155 on page 5, I think what I communicated was high visibility markings. You know, of course, all our cars are marked, but I suggested we have a couple of vehicles that are marked high visibility.
So if on line
155.
If on line 154, she changed it to have some of your cars marked with high visibility, that would...
It should, that was my statement, that
Okay.
I think a couple of vehicles should have high visibility markings.
Anything else?
Yes, on the, excuse me, I have this, the winter's catching up to me, my voice. On the 10th, on page 5, line 158, item 2, I wanted to make clear to the public that, in fact, the splash pad, if the splash pad toilets were available to the public.
Okay, so essentially the answer was, though, that the answer is no 24/7. So how would you reword that?
Well, I said my question was that I wanted to know if the splash pads were available. And of course, came in a response, no, they were not. But it's just our public toilets, it doesn't really identify the topic as being the splash pad toilets.
Oh, okay. At splash pad. Yeah, that works.
Splash pad is referenced in line 159. Does that cover us? So we know we were talking about that?
I don't
Or is
think it
that
hurts
too late?
anything to put it on both lines, I guess, just to be, for
Just to be
clarity,
clear,
I guess.
sure.
Anything else?
And there was one other one, dealt when we spoke with Mr. Camara from the rescue squad. I'm trying to find that page. On the, oh, that would be on the 12th, yes. And the subject of PCRC being involved with regionalization. Yes, line item number 284 on page 9. And I asked, should we refer this issue to the BCRC for consideration?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
That's clearly different.
Right.
Not deep. Two very different meetings.
Right. So in terms of the minutes, that's the only questions I had.
Okay. Nancy, you're good on those?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Jackie?
Yeah, thank you. The minutes from January 10th, line 61, I had asked Wendy Sharkey about the cost of a membership at the library. It indicates that her answer was just the same, which doesn't entirely make sense. I believe she answered that the cost was $0. The same as, it seems to reference something else, but it's not clear the same as what. It just, the answer was $0.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what line was that?
Line 61.
The end of that line says that doesn't answer the question. Jackie,
Okay, anything else from anyone? Nancy?
Yeah, I noticed in each set of the minutes, but as an example, page 10 through 11, line 328.
Which?
Oh, I'm sorry, July 12th.
January 12th. July 12th will be my birthday, and I'm not in a rush.
So page 10 through 11, line 328 through 365, there's many people making comments, but you don't know who's saying what, and I think it's important if somebody reads the minutes to know who's making the statement.
Essentially, it's all just bullet points, it looks like.
Yeah, it says board discussion ensued. I didn't name names.
I think this was part of a discussion where we weren't really doing a good job taking turns and letting each person have their say. There was some free-flowing discussion, and so I can understand where it would be difficult to capture like exactly who was making which point through the whole dialogue.
But if you read through the 3 different minutes, I mean, there are some comments that are very different from someone else's comments, and I think it's important to know who is making the statements.
Was it a debate among the board that we were having, and we didn't capture who said what?
Right.
So, Mr. Chair, I will point out that minutes are not meant to be a transcript, and there is a video of the meeting, so it's a certain limit to what, and we also have to remember it was a 5-hour meeting. So
Right.
I guess the expectations of how detailed they are should be tempered by that.
I would say that Nancy tends to go above and beyond what actually are required in minutes.
And I would say that the discussion that's captured here does reflect the discussion that I remember this board having, even if it doesn't attribute each statement to a particular individual.
Sorry, I forgot to shut my phone off. Sarah?
Yes, we are approving 3 minutes right now, really long budget meetings. So I want to take a look at and just make an observation on warrants. The number is 404-929. And I don't have a problem with the amount, but I want to just make an observation. The minutes for the meetings that we're approving are $1,750, so it's $1,750.
I'm sorry, again, what page
Yep.
are you on?
I need
It's
to
the
be
warrants.
directed back, I'm sorry.
404. That is correct. That is correct, I am. So yes, this is 404-929 for budget.
On what page?
This is the warrants.
5.
Page 5.
Yep.
Okay, I'm with you
Thank
now.
Is your iPhone?
I put it in my pocket, so hopefully
No,
not.
no, it's good. Just kidding. Yeah, so the warrants altogether are $1,750. I'm just making observation of the practice that I have gone to make some of the meetings shorter are emailing Nancy the corrections that I have to kind of just speed through the process so that the numbers could go down in the future. So just a note for some of my colleagues here that might be helpful to them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and
Clark, you have more?
Since we've jumped to warrants here, please. Page 7, item 404954. It looks like a $7,000 repair of the Silk Road Bridge. That's going to be reimbursed by the vehicle's insurance company?
That's correct. That we will be reimbursed. Yep.
I'm sorry, what minutes are we on?
We're in the warrants now, Nancy.
Warrants.
Oh, we're on the warrant.
It's been a long day for everybody.
A lot of people are moving snow today, I'm sure. Yeah.
Anything else on the warrants?
Yep.
Nancy?
Page 6, Otis Elevator Company, 404938, $704.95. Where is the elevator located?
Well, we have an elevator here,
Yep,
and we also have an elevator at the senior center.
okay, but it's not for Catamount?
No, we
Okay.
don't maintain that elevator.
Well, I just wanted to
Yep.
check. Okay, thanks.
Anything else on the warrants?
Yep. Oh, not the warrants,
Oh,
no.
I'm sorry. Licenses? Or did you have more on the minutes?
Yep.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, we can go back. Which?
The minutes of the 10th, page 11, line 400. I'm quoted as saying, "Other purchase services. How can we budget if we haven't negotiated an agreement for FY '27? What I actually said is we don't know what we're going to charge the taxpayers to pay the Y for the last 6 months of the budget. So without having that money in the budget, I didn't understand where the money will come from.
That was what line, Nancy?
400? It starts with other purchase services.
Can you say again what you think it should say for Nancy?
I'm sorry?
Say what it should say, please, so Nancy can get it.
The board does not know what we're going to charge the taxpayers to pay the Y for the last 6 months of the budget.
And
Yeah,
anything,
that's what I understand it to say.
anything else? And nothing else on the warrants or the licenses? All right. Very good. So let's vote. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And no abstentions. Great. Thank you very much. I just buried my agenda. There it is. All right, next, we have public comment. Public comment is a time for folks in the community to inform us on events that are going on in the community that are not on the agenda. If you have comments related to anything on the agenda, we'll ask you to come up and speak to those during the appropriate agenda item. I'll remind everyone that it is not a question and answer period. However, if there are short questions that we're able to handle, please take your seat and we will address those as appropriate at the end of public comment. And I'll remind everyone to please keep your comments to 3 minutes or fewer. We had two folks sign up. We'll start with Cookie Clickers on the robotics qualifier.
Is this on? Okay, good. Hello, my name is Althea Dakia. This is Callum Joma, Abe Woods, and my little sister. We are all part of...
What's her name?
Eleanor, sorry. My bad. I know her really well, obviously. We are all members of FTC Team 18650, the Cookie Clickers, one of Bennington's 2 local robotics clubs. We compete in First Tech Challenge and are also a part of the larger First Robotics family that includes First Lego League and First Robotics Competition. Each year we build a new robot, sometimes built off the previous years, to compete in alliance-based matches with other teams across the state. We were founded in 2022 and we have been competing for 2020, sorry, and we've been competing for 5 years. This year we had a lot of recruits, so we were able to start another team, team number 32473, the Bennington Bolts and Biscuits. Yeah, very cute, I know. On January 31st, this Saturday, we will be co-hosting the first ever Bennington qualifier at the middle school with our new team and team number 16221, the Manchester Machine Makers. We expect about like 11 teams from all over Vermont and also Massachusetts. This is the first robotics event in Bennington and the second qualifying event Vermont has ever had. Since we are such a small state, normally we go straight to, like, all the teams in the state go straight to state championships, and so we're very excited about this new development. It's free to attend and open to the public, so if you're not doing anything this Saturday, please stop by and watch the robots in action. The qualifying matches, which is when you'll see the robots doing stuff, are scheduled between roughly 11:30 and 2. So if all goes to schedule, we should have our playoff matches between 2:30 and 3:30. So please come by and support youth in STEM. Finally, we would like to take a moment to thank the town of Bennington for being early supporters of STEM activities by providing early funding as well as two spaces. First, we started off in the old high school, and now we have moved to Beach Street School. Without this help, we would have been unable to continue being a team, and we would also like to thank all the volunteers that have already signed up for this Saturday. Without them, it would just be completely impossible to run the event, so thank you.
Also the qualifiers sponsored by
Bennington Rotary. Sorry.
Great stuff. Thank you.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
I'm a little sad we couldn't see the robot do things, but I guess we have to wait till Saturday.
Well, teaser.
Next, we have Jody and Jason Lilly on WBTN.
I'm Jody Lilly. This is Jason Lilly. As you know, we were here for the budget meeting. We just came to clarify some of the things that that were recorded in the minutes. Because we were not able to hear it on the CAT TV because it did cut off at 1 o'clock, and this was either spoken to after or during executive session. I'm not 100% sure. So we're just going to go through the things that were said and tell you our things here. Says we're not a part of the emergency plan. We just actually talked to Chief Doucette. There was a miscommunication, so we are actually going to be a part of the emergency plan. He's going to fix that. Correct? Correct. So there was a miscommunication, so we are a part of the emergency plan.
I'd be reading it, but I just had my eyes dilated, so I can't read that small print.
He can't see.
Okay. Bad typing.
One of the things says people can't listen to radio unless they're online or in their car, as this radio is right here. That was a misstatement in your minutes. The reason we're here is because these minutes are part of public record now. And if there's inconsistencies in these or untruths, we need to correct them so that they're right, in case somebody 10 years down the road looks back, oh, geez, you can't even hear it. Yeah, or a minute or a month from now. So yeah, we can be heard on every radio. So whoever said that needs to be corrected.
Okay. All right, and then there was a thing that said an organization not run by professionals can go drift. We are all volunteers. Correct, we all are volunteers, but doesn't mean we aren't professionals, which is why I took it, and I found it offensive because I am the treasurer. I have an associate's degree in business management. I have a bachelor's degree in human resource management. I have many certifications in other healthcare fields. I run a small business multi-million-dollar business in town that I do all the financial aspects of. So that just was kind of offensive to me because I do volunteer my time, but I also am a professional. Our chief engineer is also a business owner in town. He does do a lot of stuff for many businesses in town for their security systems, for their computer networks. So he is also very well.
And it was a paid position, but when cutbacks were coming right before COVID or right after COVID, he went to fully volunteer. He still does all of our chief engineering, fixes a transmitter, fixes the computers, and he donates his time. So he is a professional in town.
And the person that does the program for our station has over 10 years of experience doing it, which is the chief engineer, the treasurer, and the programming used to be a paid position. We no longer are paid. We volunteer all of our time.
And the show host also runs a local business. He's a published author and owns numerous patents. So I'd consider him a professional. So yeah, we all took offense to that.
Okay. And then there was a statement that there was some accurate information during Irene as well as some very inaccurate information.
That was all said after the cameras went off, so we don't know who said that. But town manager Stu Hurd and Dave Lively, the morning show host, they were the ones down there giving the information. So to have it in our public record that there was some very inaccurate, I'd like to know what the inaccurate information was, because we have state awards from Vermont Association of Broadcasters and the governor's office and the information we gave out during Irene. And it's in this public record now that there's some very inaccurate, so I'd like to know where that came from.
And that was, we just feel that being in the minutes, that stating it that way, it could deter somebody from maybe supporting us in the future, saying, well, if they're not giving accurate and up-to-date information, why would we support them?
Everything that we do promotes Bennington, and all of our advertising, we talk about Bennington in all of our shows, and all we've been asking is some help for the town. We thought this would go one of three ways. We'd get funded for what we asked for because we needed a number. We could get funded for less in the budget, or we could get put on the ballot for the townspeople to decide. As a board, you guys have said that you didn't want us to be on the ballot or fund us. Why can't we take it to the taxpayers? And I understand now that that's only a couple days away to be able to get the petition and get signatures. If we knew that after this meeting, we would have done that, but the cameras turned off at 1 o'clock, and this discussion was after that. We were watching when the camera turned off, so we were like, okay, do they stop the meeting now that they don't have the record of it, or what happens? So. Okay, and
we just wanted to make those corrections.
Thank you very much, and those will be reflected in tonight's minutes. Josh, just for the record, we went into executive session, I assume, at 1. Did you go back on air after we got out?
We did, but it cut off because how our system works, and it was my fault that the time that was allotted ended, so it was lost, and I regret not extending it because it's all on me, so that's
Excuse me.
Clark.
Hi. I realize it's not a point of just dialogue or whatever, but to those folks who are listening out there, I'm just asking, please do as best you can to help keep WBTN up. It is a community asset. It does serve our community. And I said it before, the old line, you don't know what you have till it's gone. And personally, I don't want to find out what we had because they're gone. So that's a personal plea. Thank you.
if I could just throw one more line in there. In 2012, I came to the station because my father heard the first broadcast back in 1953. Back then, before TVs, they had a radio, and they listened to it. And in 2012, when the town decided that they weren't going to fund us or put us on the ballot, I went down there and walked in the door and says, what do you guys need help with? And that's where I've gained some of my volunteers from, is we don't want to let that place die. We were told in 2012 the place wouldn't survive. 14 years later, we're still here. So just because we're volunteer doesn't mean we're not professionals. And that would be like saying our local fire departments aren't professionals. I volunteered in this area for 30 years as a firefighter. Volunteer paid, we're all professionals. Thank you.
I do apologize if you felt that we were, no one here deliberately meant to be insulting to you, so I do apologize if you took it that way. I'm sorry. And oftentimes, as Dan said earlier, the minutes aren't a verbatim record, so sometimes the language is a little bit confusing. So again, no one meant an insult. Is there anyone that wishes to speak that did not have a chance to sign up before the meeting? All right. Moving on, we have the Local Emergency Management Plan and Cold Weather Annex. We have Chief Doucette joining us, wearing his public safety officer hat, I assume.
I would like to know how you arrange this weather. Can we look into that, please?
I definitely been wearing a hat lately, I can tell you that. My Smokey the Bear hat. So tonight, I just want to go over a couple things with all of you. I brought my newfound friend Roxanne with me from the Homeless Coalition. She's my backup for the evening. And when I say evening, I mean less than the next 25 minutes. So with that being said, I just want to start out by thanking all of you for taking the time. Hopefully you reviewed the cold weather emergency response plan that you received in your packets. It's been a lot of work to put that together with a lot of different folks. So the town of Bennington is required, just very briefly, the town of Bennington is required to put together a local emergency management plan. That plan is then reviewed by the town manager, and it's submitted to the select board for review. The chair of the select board signs that as well, if approved, and then we submit that to the state for them to review. So a little more than a year ago, in our local emergency management plan, we decided that we were going to develop a heat annex, and following the heat annex being approved, we began working on a cold annex. With that being said, the cold annex is technically, although not yet adopted and put into play, is in play. And we have taken that upon ourselves. There are multiple agencies that came to the table initially that began working with us, and then we began our little breakout groups and began really focusing on the different things that were needed within the town of Bennington. The annexes, they help the town with direction, with emergency response processes, and and some of those can be found on the Town of Bennington website under the Emergency and Disaster webpage. So this particular annex that we're going to talk about tonight it discusses the cold weather advisory, the extreme cold weather warning, winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings, ice storm warnings, and winter weather advisories. Again, you members of the select board have all of that. It talks about the communication plan. It talks about community warming facilities. And really, that's what a lot of people wanted to know. What are we going to do when the temperatures get so low that people in Bennington may need some help? Under the warming facilities, we talked about places, centers, and shelters. There's so many people that wanted to know about sheltering and what we could do. We already have an excellent homeless coalition with a couple of facilities here in Bennington, and so we look to them for some guidance. We have all kinds of places for people to go during the day where they can get warm and go and do things. The senior citizens can come here to the firehouse, as an example, because they need to get out and exercise. Well, when it's 10 degrees out, exercising and walking walking outside is not always good for some of them, as an example. So they come here to the firehouse and they play their music and they walk their laps. Some people go and exercise at some of our big box stores by pushing a shopping cart around. Some people go to the movie theater. Some people go to BPI, and the list goes on and on. So with that being said, in going to Roxanne and Carissa with our situation and going to Vermont Interfaith Action, there was some money that was allocated by the state, and working with Roxanne, Carissa, and others, they applied for a grant, and we're currently using St. Peter's Episcopal Church on Pleasant Street for an overnight shelter. So before we have even come to you with this plan, that shelter has already been activated. It has been activated since last week. End of last week. It is activated tonight. In fact, I picked up Roxanne and brought her here, and I'm going to bring her back to St. Peter's. I don't know how she's functioning, but I want to tell you that this has been a long project. And I'm pleased to say that we have worked with, as far as town staff goes, with Paul Danzero and Jonah Spivak and my administrative assistant, Whitney LeBlanc, to make all of this happen. I mean, there is not a plan like this in the state of Vermont, and as I've told all of you in my last presentation, there are places that are just waiting to see what we develop here in Bennington, because Bennington is a leader in many things. So, where are we at? Well, right now we're at an activation level, to be honest with you, and our shelter is up and running because so many people were concerned, as I said, about where people were going to go. My people have been going to my people. Bennington police officers have been going out and checking locations where in the summer we were checking people under the heat annex and making sure that they had proper shelter. We have not found a lot of folks out in the cold, but we know that there are folks that need help, and there are some folks that have been showing up to the shelter. And our role as the town of Bennington was to develop this cold weather annex. We don't control, as a town, the shelter. That's what Roxanne does along with her staff. So what is the town of Bennington's role in this shelter currently? We provide a law enforcement officer to the shelter, dressed down, not in full gear, dressed down, and that officer stays at the shelter with Roxanne's staff overnight from 6:30 at night until 7:30 in the morning. I want to be clear that we're not taking an officer off the shift. The officers have stepped up and are working this as a 4120 detail. Initially, we had, for example, Paul Danzero was doing fire and life safety occupancy for that building. There was some zoning that needed to be approved, and that was approved and granted. And we are confident that we have found a wonderful community partner with St. Peter's Episcopal Church. We've always had a good working relationship with the Homeless Coalition, not because we have to, because we want to, and we want to help folks. So, with that being said, this plan really does address different levels of cold weather. And it's just ironic that I was going to be here tonight, because certainly at the end of last week, we saw all this come together. I was on the phone with the town manager saying, Dan, I'm sorry, but we can't wait until we get in front of the select board. We got to make this happen now. No problem, Chief. And that's what we've done. Working with Roxanne has been amazing, just because she and her staff understand where we need to to be. And we have the opportunity that if we do come across someone that needs to go to this emergency overnight shelter, the hours are 6:30 to 9:30 for entry PM, unless accompanied by a law enforcement or rescue personnel. And again, the shelter is countywide. In order to accept the funding, we have to be a countywide shelter. Okay, but this is not in any way, shape, or form costing the town of Bennington any money. The staff hours that we have into this cold weather annex and to develop this plan is it's just amazing how all of this came together. We had so many people at the table at the beginning, and then as time went by, things started to drop off because people got to put their comments in, and I think that it's pretty comprehensive. I haven't really said too much about Jonah, but he was instrumental in making sure that we came up with the proper media releases. My administrative assistant Whitney, typed all of this, put it all together, and for the 10th time that you've heard me say this before, this is relatively new, and people are waiting to see, what comes out of this plan. I mean, this is a 20-page document, and our friends from Bennington Rescue attended a couple of meetings, and we just kind of took everybody's information, we put it in here. It involved a lot of letter writing, a lot of communication, outside of meetings, so that we could line up our people from Interfaith Council, Vermont Center for Independent Living, the Multicultural Center folks, Bennington Housing Solutions, BPI, the Supervisory Union, so, as you took the time to peruse through all of this, you'll see different locations for warm places. You'll see different locations, which are some for warming centers, which are the same as warming places, some of the folks that are involved. And I want to point out to you that there would be long-term shelters in the event of an ice storm and we lost power for days and things like that. But then we needed a solution for a warming shelter for overnight. And there's a grant agreement, and again, the town has nothing to do with that grant agreement, but it involves some pretty outrageous temperatures of -10, and if the state activates, then what ends up happening is we have to open. It's that simple. And then there are nights that we can activate if need be, and we have options that we can exercise. But for the most part at this point, since the end of last week, Roxanne and her staff have been able to maintain this shelter. It's open tonight. It's open again tomorrow night, and we might get a break on Wednesday, but then the temperatures are going to just drop again, and we have to make sure that we have sheltering in place. So this grant covers 20 nights, and we're hoping not to use all 20 nights in 3 weeks here, but we've had a pretty mild winter so far. You get 2 or 3 inches a year. I don't think the Public Works Director would agree with me, because we get 2 or 3 inches, their guys have to come out and plow and salt and sand, and but when I say mild, I mean the temperatures haven't been too bad until late, and it's going to get cold again. So the sheltering is a big piece. We do have the ability to coordinate with other state and local agencies. But this particular storm and these temperatures that just came through and that are going to continue to come through are something that we have to be prepared for, and it's affecting the entire state. We see sometimes where Vermont has storms, we have these ice storms. We've been fortunate where we've come out unscathed, but Wilmington is shut down for a week. Right now, the entire state is seeing these cold temperatures, and there are shelters that have been activated, throughout the entire state. So I don't want to spend a lot of time with all of that, because that's really not my expertise. My expertise is putting this together, making sure that it runs smoothly, making sure the media releases get out, communicating with Jonah, and then Jonah communicating with everyone else, and working closely with Roxanne. The first thing that I hear when I see her name pop up on my screen, I say, "Hello, I'm really sorry to bother you." That's what she says to me. That's right. She says to me, "Are you sick of me yet?" We communicated all weekend long, just making sure that we were ready to provide a service to Bennington residents and residents of Bennington County. And I think, not blowing our own horns, but I think so far, so good, and there's been 0 incidents at the shelter, and I think that we're providing a service that is needed to the community, and I'm pleased to be part of this. I'm pleased that we had so much support. The same folks that were involved in establishing the heat annex were involved initially with the cold annex, and I'm just asking that you take a look at this and that we adopt it, and we can attach it to our local emergency management plan, and we can put it into play. Although there's my guy. We can put it to really good use, and I don't want to take up too much time, but that's really what's going on, and I would love to answer any questions that any of you have about the cold weather annex.
Okay, thanks, Chief. And I want to actually I was highly involved with the writing of the warm weather annex, and then we knew we were moving into the cold weather annex, and I became chair and got a lot busier. And I was 100% confident that the group that was working on this was up to the task, and you were a big part of that, so I really appreciate your work on this. I think you did a great job. And thanks to everyone else, too.
It's a group effort, for sure.
Yeah, but I was very, very pleased when I saw this. And so I think, for the purposes of discussion, could I have a motion to accept the annex, and then we'll move into a discussion?
So moved.
Okay, second. Okay.
So I have a question or a comment when you're ready.
I'll start with you.
Great. So I wanted to first thank you guys for the work that you're doing, and it's just living here means that we need these kinds of services. There's no amount of public outreach that is too much. There's always one more that we can do, and I am hoping that people that are listening tonight realize that. There are often comments on social media this time of year about people reaching out for help. I saw a post today, someone's house, pipes were frozen. They were looking for a place to go and to be and to have the access to running water and all that. That's what this serves for us for those periods of time. So we are addressing it as a community, and I'm grateful that we're doing that. Is this plan on the town website, or will it be on the town website? Will we be drawing, sending eyes to it?
Once you all approve it, it'll get attached to the emergency management plan, local emergency management plan, along with the heat annex.
Okay.
So that's how that will happen.
So I'll just wrap up by saying that the plan is thorough, it's complete, it has all the pieces that it needs. It's always subject to change. You're always going to add and
yearly
update. Understood. The work isn't done here because we have a plan. So it's going to take the engagement of the folks who need to be engaged ongoing.
Clark.
Yeah, I want to echo what Ed just said here in terms of people knowing where to go and get the help that they need. Just like Ed, I am constantly reading or even being approached by people wanting to know, well, what is the town doing? And it's almost kind of frustrating. I say to them, well, the town can't really do things other than facilitate other groups that can actually provide these services. And, the Homeless Coalition and so forth and other agencies listed here are doing the heavy lifting. And I want folks to understand that it's not the town, it's the folks, their neighbors, their friends and neighbors who are doing the heavy lifting. And we're just there to support them as best we can, and we appreciate what they're doing.
Thank you.
Jackie.
Again, I'll echo, I'm so grateful that this is available for members of the community. I think it's extremely important that, particularly anybody in this community, but I understand that these services are going to be utilized by some of the most vulnerable members of our community. And I'm really proud to live in a place that makes sure that everyone in our town is taken care of in that way. I saw the email that came out about the extension. I think it's fantastic that we've put this into practice and will, I imagine, have some first lessons to learn from this really by the time that we approve it. There was a line here that said, upon entry, a brief intake will be conducted by shelter staff, including check-in and safety procedures. I wonder if you could talk a little about what that looks like?
It's actually, thank you. It's actually very brief. Due to grants, we always have, things that we can't just make our decisions all by ourselves. But our intake at 966 in Norton House is a little lengthier. We shortened it as much as we could for this. We basically do have to ask, are you homeless? Is this your first night being homeless? And if someone has frozen pipes, as far as I'm concerned, they're homeless, and that can go on record, okay? I don't care if they actually own a place. If they have frozen pipes, we'll bring them in. But we have to ask if you're a sex offender. We have to ask if there's violent crimes. Sex offender, we do have to turn away because there is a chance we'll have families and if children show up. The good news is the extensions that just came out, which weren't in place yet, did say that they'd open up more GA program beds at the motels for families. So we haven't had any families, but we want to know that if a family is there, we don't want to be turning a family away. Any very violent crimes, especially of recent nature, myself and the officer with me will make that determination based on, what it is and everything. We haven't had to turn anyone away. In fact, everyone that's shown up so far, except for 2 young men, are very well known to us. And the 2 young men that showed up actually, we actually in the morning escorted them right up to 966 and they took 2 beds there. So now they're getting housing, case management and housing navigation. So that felt really good right there. That was worth all the endless hours of no sleep we've had this week. Am I answering your question?
Yes.
Okay. So it's really, really short and sweet. The initial intake is just, are we comfortable with you coming further in? Then when they come in, it's a very short, for our HMIS, our coordinated entry system, our data collection for Vermont, it's extremely short too. It's basically, do you have any earned income, blah, blah, blah. And that is just to get them the information we need to get them quickly in the system and then refer them a soft referral to where we feel they should be soft referred the next day, whether it be our outreach team at BCCH or Turning Point or wherever we think that they should be a soft referral. And then hopefully over to Brock to be put into the coordinated entry system completely with all their information to start helping them further.
And how many, you have 35 beds?
We're allowed to have 35.
And how many intakes have you had the last couple days?
The Friday night we had 2. Mm-hmm. Saturday night we had 5. And last night we had 3, which were the same people. We've had the same people, except for the 2 that we moved up to 966. We did think we'd have more.
being very, very tired. We're kind of, like, ugh, we only have 2 people, but you know what? We just saved 2 lives last night. And we're grateful that because we know there's a lot more people that are not sheltered right now, but we're all happy that they found somewhere obviously safe to go for right now. And tomorrow night, if they don't have that same couch or whatever, then we'll be there. Like Chief said, we are activated. These nights are optional tonight and tomorrow night, but we chose to, it's still really cold. Wednesday night is our iffy night, but for all of you, I think most of you know it's pit count. So that's the night that we count our number of homeless people on the streets. And quite honestly, that's a very difficult decision for us Wednesday night. If we bring them into the emergency cold weather shelter, they don't count. They count in a different respect, but they don't count for our actual unsheltered individuals or families in Bennington. We will activate, don't get me wrong. We'll make sure the state knows that those numbers are wrong because of PIT, but that was the one night that was difficult. But we haven't been activated yet because it's going to be right at 0. But then it plummets again. So we know for a fact we'll get activated for Thursday, Friday, and most likely Saturday. And then after that, it's probably optional. I think the first night that we saw that we probably will all go home and sleep a full night is either the 2nd or 3rd of February.
That's a commitment. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I think probably as word gets out that this is a resource that's available, it'll be more utilized. One other sort of line of questioning that I had, and this might be more for you, Chief Doucette, when I was reviewing the minutes, it stuck out that you had mentioned back on January 3rd that there are or will be some Homeland Security agents in town on other enforcement business. Recent events nationally, I think, have raised some serious concerns about how federal enforcement operates in local communities, and I'm just thinking about that in the context of this shelter and this sort of life-saving emergency preparedness, and what actions the town takes to ensure that these enforcement actions don't interfere with people's access to these shelters, any protocols that might be in place to prevent people from being detained or questioned while they're seeking access to these resources.
At this point, Jackie, I'm not aware of anybody that is coming into Bennington for that purpose. And I don't want to take away from, I'm not trying to go around your question. I don't want to take away all the hard work that went into this, but I do understand what you're asking me based on what's happening in other parts of this country. But I can assure you that the Bennington Police Department will not be joining in any type of raids or anything like that. And I think that people need to understand that. And I've said it. I've been asked multiple times. I've sent emails. It's just, to me, I need to be careful, but to me, I don't want to worry about that, because I can tell you that my agency will not be participating in that. But I understand, based on some of the things. I mean, we're seeing it happen in rural areas such as Maine now. As I've told you before, New Hampshire kind of signed on board with the federal government. We're seeing people leave municipal law enforcement to become members of federal law enforcement because of the high-paying jobs. And we had, when I presented to you all the budget and talked about how I thought we were going to be able to get a few more people on staff, one of those people has withdrawn and decided that, they are going to become part of that team. So unfortunate, yes, but, that's that's only one part of the federal government. When the U.S. Marshals come into town to arrest, a convicted sex offender that has jumped bail or what have you, that's a little bit different. They're still our federal law enforcement partner, but they're not ICE, right? That's what we're talking about. And, we would assist with that because they're required to bring to the closest local police department where we would do the fugitive from justice paperwork and get them arraigned here in Bennington and make arrangements for them to have hearings and get them to where what state they should be returned to. So when I say that we work with federal partners, we do. Working with Homeland Security has been an advantage to us with the drug flow problems that we have seen in Bennington, but I don't see the people that Roxanne has been dealing with because we've talked about the folks. I don't have any fears that they are part of an ICE operation or whatever, that they're going to get picked up by ICE. So I'm not concerned about that at all.
Thank you. And I appreciate the need to balance sort of public safety, which is absolutely important with people's constitutional rights. And so I appreciate that there's a fine line to walk there. I don't want to get off topic, but if there is a situation where a federal officer acts improperly, is there a local point of accountability that residents should report that to?
I mean, right now, there's legislation that's been introduced in Vermont. I mean, it's a new legislative season, right? There's some legislation that's been introduced up north. I can't remember all the letters and numbers that go along with it, but I have read it. And it was introduced up north from some folks up in Burlington. And you have to understand that local law enforcement does not control what federal law enforcement does. They operate under different rules, different guidelines, and I can't take the 6 Bennington police officers and prevent them from doing what they feel their job is, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be in a stack to enter someone's home, lined up to go into someone's home to remove somebody that might be on a civil detain or what have you. So, I mean, there's a lot that people don't understand, and I do ask that people try to educate themselves. But again, we can't, block them from coming into Bennington and things like that. And it just doesn't work like that. But, we talk about this, it seems like on a regular basis, but I've yet to see it happen in Bennington. Our Homeland Security partners come into Bennington looking for sex offenders, looking for people that are involved in child pornography and things like that. And yes, we do assist our federal partners, but not ICE.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Just switch. I know Chief has thanked everyone that was involved in the annex, and I echo that. But I have to make sure it goes on record with all of you. We would not be doing this at all. We wouldn't be successful with this at all if it wasn't for the Bennington Police Department, Jonah. The Bennington Banner has really, they're pushing out our press releases and changing them every 30 seconds. But in addition, I really want all of you to really think about the future. This is our first time doing this. And we don't want to always have the restrictions we have in place right now of it has to be a -10 below for 4 or more hours before I can open those doors. That is brutal, and that's the mandatory. They waited till, was it 2 weeks ago? I think it was just 2 weeks ago that they said, okay, some of the people that were going to do this dropped out, so we have a little extra funding. So at 0 for 4 or more hours, we'll let you. It's optional. You know what? We need those temperatures to come up. People are freezing to death at 32 degrees, sometimes even warmer, or even warmer. So don't be surprised if you hear from me asking for the town's help of maybe helping us in the future and how we can all work together to make sure I don't have to wait till it's 10 below zero. Because St. Peter's is on board, we're on board. We might be tired, but we're going to do it anyway. I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this question, but if anyone could just make a note and then help me find out. I think it was 3 years ago that there was $50,000 set aside to help the homeless. And I think it was, Dan, you might remember, I think it was being set aside in case we did the Autumn Inn as a big collaboration with the Turning Point and everyone. So it was kind of just set aside, but I haven't been able to find out anything since because obviously my predecessor was involved in that and not me. But that is something that if it is still there, I would love to see set aside for possibly next year to help out with that.
Those funds they're not available anymore, just to be clear.
It's not available anymore?
No.
Okay, so then I'll be just coming forward to ask all you guys for help in the future then. More help than our normal BCCH money. We're gonna need help for stuff like this because we might be the coalition, but every penny that the town does help us with right now goes to keep the shelters running, let's face it. So all the extra we're trying to do. And also for the record, when Chief said Bennington Housing Solutions, because this group has become so incredible, we've changed the name to Bennington Community Solutions. It's not just about housing, because let's face it, we have to solve a lot of other things to make sure that the housing works. So we've changed that to Bennington Community Solutions. Thank you.
Clark, I'll come back to you. I'm going to let everybody else talk first.
Yeah, so as a question about what you had just said, I was wondering about it. You talked about the grant criteria, I think that's related to 10 below zero threshold, and the action thresholds in here, like the extreme cold warning is at 5 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, or 10 below wind chill. Is there is there a connection between the grant and what's in the cold weather action plan, given those different thresholds?
Tell me if I'm wrong. The annex was put together before we had this grant, before this grant came down. The grant itself must be 10 degrees below zero, or must feel like 10 degrees below zero or colder.
Okay.
So there's that feels like, that is of course always fun too, and it has to be for 4 or more hours. That's what the grant is covering.
Okay, and your work on this is commendable, thank you, and the commitment that you folks all have to the cause is really great. And I'm just wondering, given like the forecast that you referenced, where we're going to be at or below zero almost every day for the next week and a half or so. It's one thing, it's one thing to have this grant, have the resource. Do you have the resources for like day after day after day if we get in one of these extended cold snaps to provide all the services that you need to?
We have a couple of us that are extremely dedicated. We have, thankfully, BPD that will be there with us every night that we need to be. If it keeps going, well, we only have 20 nights, unfortunately, so let's all pray that it doesn't go. We don't have too many more because we're going to run out of nights. We do have some volunteers that obviously are willing to come over. We've been fortunate that some people have brought some food over and stuff like that, but it is wearing thin already, and we're only in night, tonight's only night 4 because certain people must be there. And we're small. We're not Burlington or Rutland that has, 30 people volunteering their time. They're doing 4-hour shifts. They have enough people to do that. We're not. We're pulling the whole load. So. Thanks.
Sarah, do you have anything? Okay, Nancy?
Yeah. Am I correct that Bennington, Brattleboro, Rutland, Barry, Montpelier, and one other place are all receiving funding for the extreme cold weather shelter?
I'll try to do this from memory of my meetings the last 2 mornings, but my brain is a little foggy. Barry backed out. They found funding separately. Okay. So Barry, that's one of the reasons why we can have optional nights right now, is Barry went out on their own and found some different funding. On the meetings, we've had Montpelier, Rutland, Brattleboro, Bennington, Who else did you just say, Nancy? Because I know I just forgot somebody.
It was Barry Montpelier.
Montpelier is a definite still in, and Barry has been coming and reporting, but they're no longer being funded by the grant.
And Rutland, the city officials are running the shelter themselves?
I don't know exactly who it is.
I think that's what I read in the Rutland Herald. I've been reading on the state website. Are they the ones providing the rules that need to be followed?
OEO.
Or is it this interfaith group?
It's OEO is still the overseer of the whole grant. VIA is the contracted agency that's, OEO is still making all the rules, and VIA is the one that's helping implement and keeping us all on focus.
I think it would be helpful to have somebody come in from VIA and also the other group I read about in the banner that is partnering with you. I'm not aware either of the groups have done anything in Bennington or Bennington County, and I was surprised Turning Point wouldn't be partnering because we'd gotten updates from them for like a year at meetings, the work they'd been doing with the homeless.
Unfortunately, Turning Point lost their grant that does the outreach. They no longer have that grant. And BCCH has picked up, and it wasn't their fault that they just, the money went away. BCCH, we have two outreach. We have Carissa, who's the other executive director, who oversees our outreach team, and we have two team members. Unfortunately, we just lost one of our team members and are rehiring the other. So we're the only real outreach team right now is BCCH. I do know that Turning Point, when they can send people out with us, the AIDS Council, when they can send people out with us, and UCS, when they can send people out with us. But we're the actual ones that are the actual outreach team right now, the only outreach team right now.
And I don't know, you probably haven't worked for the coalition very long, but I think about 10 years ago, they had a temporary shelter on North Street where people could stay around the clock, and that closed after a year or two. So there's been a lot of discussions about this for 10 years, and I think people should be happy they finally have it. But I do want to remind everybody, we have been the only town in Bennington County with shelters for 25 years. And we have been given by far more money to the Homeless Coalition than all the other towns put together. And I really think it's time for the other towns to be asked to step up. The Homeless Coalition and the other county nonprofits that are funded to work with the homeless, I'm really surprised that they haven't opened and staffed another shelter in Manchester by now. You know, there's nobody between Bennington, Rutland, and Brattleboro. 40 to 60 miles is too far apart. And so I'm kind of nervous when I hear the coalition may come back to Bennington because Bennington...
No, I'm sorry. I meant Bennington County. I don't mean just the town of Bennington. We're actually going out and getting all the petitions and doing everything we can to make everyone, including Manchester again, and I'll say that out loud, back on the ballot sending us money. Because yes, Bennington does give the majority, and I know the thinking was always because we're sitting right here in Bennington, and most of but it is Bennington County. So we are, when I say Bennington, I should have said we're going to be seeking more funds from everybody. All
the other towns.
Yes,
other than
all the other towns. The ones that already give, like Bennington, and the ones that don't give anything. We will be seeking it this year, upcoming year.
And at the shelter, when somebody gets there and signs in, if they leave, are they able to come back in?
They're allowed to leave and come back every day as long as they come back by curfew.
No. When they check in at night, say they get there at 8 o'clock, if they decide they want to leave at 1 o'clock in the morning, can they leave and come back?
No. Due to safety and security reasons, we have a curfew. If they're at the hospital or something like that, or BPD brings them back, that's a different story. But they cannot just go out and hang out and come back in the middle of the night for safety and security reasons.
And they know when they get there, drugs, alcohol, weapons aren't allowed?
Correct.
And is St. Peter's getting any financial compensation for their facility?
Yes.
Okay. And Chief, when you said officers...
They did not want it, but we're giving it to them.
Well, they need it. I know they need it. When you said officers will not be in full gear, are they still going to have weapons?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, okay. They still do have to, by protocol, carry their weapon, and we actually, to be honest, want them to. They're there to protect us.
Well, no,
I always say that. These guys are here for us.
But that raises a concern when I'm looking at this annex. And I'm looking at page 10.
I'm not going to be able to answer this one.
Let me see if I got the right page. And it's talking about potential partners and roles. And I'm looking at places that can be a warming place during the day, or a warming site or a warming center. Well, we've never had the senior center used during the day for the homeless, or Meals on Wheels, or the Bennington Free Library, and I would question how that would work. There are members of the homeless population with some pretty severe mental health, substance abuse problems, or both, and to say, okay, just any place that's open, I think that could create a lot of issues.
So I think it's important for all of us, not just you, Nancy. I think it's important for all of us to understand that the emergency partners and the roles here listed on page 10, this isn't just for people that are unhoused, right? This is for people that need to go someplace during the day because they want to get warm. Maybe during the day, they want to turn the heat down in their home because they want to save on fuel oil consumption or what have you, or they want to go be with somebody and interact with people. These are locations that they can go to. You don't have to be an unhoused person to go to any of these locations. We're looking to make it so that people can go and have interactions. They can spend time with others. They can get a meal. They can get some chips and a bottle of water during the day when some of these locations are open, or they can go and get on the internet and do things. Maybe they don't have the internet at home and they're looking to get things done. They would go to the Bennington Free Library. They can go to the Multicultural Center. So again, you don't have to be unhoused. We wanted to have our community partners listed on here so that people can go and I know I've said it several times, but the word interaction is important because when it's extremely cold out and people are feeling down in the dumps, you can only take so much vitamin D, right? So these are locations where people can go and just talk with others, and that's what really this is about. Again, not just for people that are homeless. I mean, there's some elderly folks, there's some younger folks that may need time, or they may need a meal or what have you. And some of these places listed are places that they can go for that. And we do list on here that there may be a fee. So I don't want to digress and move away from cold weather, but I learned a lot from some folks in putting together the heat annex, for example. Like you can go to state parks and have access to state parks if you have an EBT card. So there are different things that you can do, and you don't have to be unhoused. And that's some of the things that we want people to understand, is that there are some things that you can be doing and not just sitting home in front of an electric heater that's oscillating back and forth. There are places that you can go. You don't have to be unhoused.
And Chief, all these partners, they were consulted before you added them to the list?
Yes, sir. We had a meeting right here. Roxanne was here. We had a meeting right here. We had lots of people in attendance that they just wanted to know what the lift was going to be. And, Roxanne was very vocal at the meeting. And, I think it's important. If you look on here, lots of places places and centers, places and centers, places and centers. But you're only going to find St. Peter's Episcopal Church as a warming shelter and Mount Anthony Union Middle School as a warming shelter, and the middle school is only in the event of a critical incident. So, you know, all of these places were consulted and sent representatives. I would say, Roxanne, there was probably a good 20 plus people here at this meeting, and a lot of people had great questions, applauded the work that we were trying to do, you know, and I think that, you know, no one has said it, but I feel like it's being inferred. You know, just because you're unhoused doesn't mean that you're going to come in and cause problems. And I think sometimes, you know, people think that, and we just need to give people an opportunity to get through a rough time, provide them with a meal, and give them someone to talk to, some fellowship or what have you. And as Roxanne said, then they come back, and that's really all we're trying to do. We're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to make sure that they feel like they're part of our community. And you know, Roxanne touched on it already. You know, my people were actually under bridges and going to all the locations where we found people this summer, you know, following our heat annex, and they just weren't there. When the cold weather comes, it seems like people find a place to go, but then we give them an opportunity to go to a shelter or make sure that they get connected with services that they don't even know about. That's what's important to us. And getting, you know, I mean, 2 people, that's pretty good for us. 2 referrals to get people services that they need and get people on track. Enough of this sending people from St. Albans to Bennington or from Rutland to Bennington. These are local people right now that we're helping. And I think that's another piece, you know, that we need to remember. And I know, you know, some of you were thinking too, I mean, I thought the same thing when I read the article. I think the Banner's done an amazing job, the Bennington Banner, putting information out about what we're trying to do here. But, you know, when people from other communities say, oh, not in our community, we don't have a shelter here, but we'll get you some transportation to Bennington. You know, I think, and I say to myself, okay, well, that's great. Again, I talked about this whole cold weather annex right at the beginning. I told you that there are other communities waiting to see if you guys are going to approve this, and it's going to become a public document. People are going to copy it, plagiarize it, whatever they want to do, But if it helps them in their community, that's great. But, you know, Bennington is a hub of services for a lot of different things. UCS, the hospital, and the list goes on. And I think that, you know, if they're going to provide transportation for people in their community to come here, then they have every right to be on the ballot in that community, and or this project has every right to be on their ballot. And but for right now, I think that we've started off pretty good, and we're keeping people safe because we had a mild winter up until the last few days, and this is the biggest snowstorm that this area has experienced in years. And you know, I'm proud of this document. I'm proud to be working with Roxanne and VIA and everybody that's helped get this going. You know, sometimes you work on things and you're like, oh, is this really going to ever happen? Or are we spinning our wheels? And it's happening, and it's happening now as we make this presentation. So I think that, you know, we're headed in the right direction. Sure, we're going to have to tweak this. We're going to have to make adjustments. We're going to have to look at it yearly. And things like that, and Roxanne already told you that, you know, the state has already made adjustments to what they initially told us. So, I think that's important for all of us to recognize. Also, is that, you know, as time goes by, are we going to have someone drop off? Maybe. Is someone going to step up and say, hey, we want to be added to your list? probably. But this is what we have as a starting point, and trust me, this when we put this document together, this wasn't a bunch of people that just sat around the table and said, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, just put that in there. It wasn't like that. We had a debate about how cold things should be. We didn't agree with the -10. That was a huge debate. But unfortunately that's what the state gave us, and we're working it. And again, at no cost right now, at no cost to the taxpayers of Bennington. The facility just happens to be in Bennington. And I know, Nancy, you brought it up. I give you credit. St. Peter's and the crew over there, really stepped up because they wanted to help, and we were so pleased because we didn't know. A lot of people came to the table, but no one said, "I'll do it," and St. Peter's did, and. Boy, so far so good, and a lot of work went into it. They had to pay for some repairs and things like that, and Roxanne hit the nail on the head. They don't want any money, but somebody's got to pay for the modifications and things like that, the repairs that were made there, and listen, I mean, we have our cots and stuff from the Red Cross. We've got sleeping bags. At some point, we may want to consider, getting our own cots and our own sleeping bags and things like that. Because, if there is a crisis at the other end of the state and the Red Cross needs that trailer, despite I have the signed grant agreement in my desk in my file drawer, that trailer is going to have to go, and we'd be without those. So, it's little things. So we're making small steps for a big project.
I would still like to hear from the two other groups that you're working with. In the banner, it was the interfaith, this is the state group, correct?
VIA is the overseer of the grant. They're the grant administrator.
Vermont Interfaith Action.
Vermont Interfaith Action. And then it's...
I thought the banner said you were partnering with that interfaith group and some rights group.
Rights group.
I'd have to look to see. That might have been a misprint or something.
In fact, somebody from that group was commenting in the paragraph, and I just had never heard of this group, didn't know.
The article, I believe you're talking about, I think that was Tom Morgan and Carissa that were quoted. Was that
from a rights group
you're talking about?
Yeah.
Tom Morgan's with Vermont Interfaith Action.
He might have discussed another agency maybe that he's working with, but we're not down here. It is strictly them, us, and St. Peter's and BPD. And the only ones on the grant are us and St. Peter's. Well, us and then St. Peter's as the location. And these guys.
But the state interfaith group, it goes through them, and then the money comes from the state?
The money comes directly from, just like our HOP grant for the shelters, the AHS and OEO is the one that's where the money is coming from, the state of Vermont. Just with OEO having everything else on their plate, their AHS division, they contracted out to VIA to oversee this particular grant this year.
Yeah. At VIA, I went to their website, they only have 2 staff members in the state, so I'm really not understanding how this group is involved.
They have more than 2. Maybe there's a division that I'm not aware of because I am really tired. So I'll ask Tom, because I do know they have 2 financial representatives, and then the other 2 people, the 2 people I deal with all the time, every day, are Tom Morgan and Rick DeAngelis are the 2 that I'm working with, meet with every morning to debrief after we close in the morning. And then I know they have 2 financial people, that Melissa, and I can't think of the other person's name. So it could be divisions of, I'm not positive, and I don't want to misquote them or anything. But it's actually Bennington County Coalition for the Homeless doing this shelter along with BPD's and St. Peter's assistance, and then VIA is the one that oversees the grant.
And there was something I read It couldn't have been on the state website. I didn't know if it was on the interface site. Said something about a person convicted of, I don't even remember the crime, could not work directly with people.
I'm sorry, it said what?
Do you do background checks of the people who will be working at the shelter?
Absolutely.
Okay. And anybody who's been convicted of a serious crime will not be allowed to work there?
Correct. If I would not hire them at BCCA's, they
Okay.
will not be working at this shelter either.
Because something I had read, maybe it was on the VEI site, said people couldn't work directly with people at the shelter, and I didn't know if that meant they could be there doing other things indirectly.
I don't know, we're vetting everyone, we're even volunteers, we are vetting just as we would a staff.
Well, that's what it's confusing, trying to read the two different things at the state level and understanding what's happening in Bennington. Okay.
Hi, a couple of questions, like housekeeping things. I see these organizations that offer some safe spot, with warming places. Do they have any sort of thing in their front window or doors if somebody walking by could see us that, hey, we offer a place for you to come in out of the cold? As you know, not everybody has internet or even a cell phone to get this information. So I was just wondering if these organizations that are willing to give people shelter, so to speak, not shelter in the sense of what Chief's talking about, but get in out of the cold. Is there any way that you could communicate that?
I don't have any high visibility signs in any of these places, if that's what you're
You
asking.
put them on the new police cars.
But I had to do it. I just think that, I don't know, I'm not aware of any, we don't have any signs, no. The answer is no. I mean, we don't have any signs. A lot of places that are just open for business, encourage people to come in and, again, this document's going to be, once approved, hopefully, is going to be listed and people can take a look and see, where they can go and things like that. So,
I'm, as you guys can imagine, I'm one of the old guys. I remember when you see a little civil defense sign in the windows of various places around town. So, something on that lines, whether it be some sort of catchy logo to get their idea that says, hey, come in out of the cold, sit down, warm up here. I just a thought. And the next thing, Rachel, right? Your name, ma'am?
My name?
Yes, ma'am.
Roxanne.
Roxanne. I was looking at your ask for this year and documentation of the different towns that have committed to funding the Coalition for Homelessness. And I was struck by the absence of the most affluent town in the state, a place where houses are 2 and 3 times the average price of the average house.
I have no problem answering that. You don't even have to get too far in depth. I guess they used to give us a little bit of money, and no, it was not as much as Bennington. And I agree that they have the most money. Something happened previous to me taking over this part of my job. I started as one of the case managers here. Something happened that we fell off their ballot. And then I think most of you know I was operating BCCH alone for 1.5 years.
Right.
Now that Chris is on board, we plan to get back on that ballot. If we have to lose a lot of sleep walking up and down the streets of Manchester, we will be on the ballot next year.
So you have an ask plan. You didn't make the cutoff this year, but there's definitely
Correct. We didn't have time. Once I had Chris on board and everything, we didn't have time to be able to go up and do all of that. And there's other towns that also falls under, but I know which town you're talking about.
Right.
I've also done all the extensive research over the last couple months until this and a few other things took priority of what we can do to increase the other towns that aren't giving nearly as much as Bennington.
It's just that, we just went through our budget meetings, our marathon budget meetings, and when I went home and looked at your proposal, and I would say I was offended, the absence of any funding from that town. And our hardworking people here in Bennington are doing the heavy lifting, both financially and building and physically.
Yeah.
And I would greatly appreciate it if your organization would
Oh, we will, definitely. And that's why we haven't asked, I think if you go back, Nancy, probably, you spoke to it a little bit, but we haven't asked Bennington to raise the amount ever since, this is my 5th year, and we have never asked Bennington to increase. And we're trying to get money from everywhere else first, obviously.
Sure, no, I understand that. Just that I actually did some legwork on my own, and when I looked at the average property on their grand list and their population, yeah, those guys. And I was like, wait a minute. There's, in my myopic world of Clark, no excuse for them not to be at least equal, if not greater, than what we're doing for the people of Bennington County. Thank you.
All right. Recognizing that we have run way over time through no fault of yours.
Surprise.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
I do want to briefly, even though it's published here, run down the list of people that have stepped up and organizations that have stepped up, keeping in mind that fees may apply or hours may vary. Gamers Grotto, the Bennington Cinemas, the Bennington Free Library, the Bennington Multicultural Center, Vermont Center for Independent Living, Men Anthony Union Middle School, Better Bennington Corporation, John G. McCullough Free Library, Interfaith Council, Bennington Project Independence, Bennington Housing Solution, GBIX, the Senior Center, the Elks Lodge, Sunrise Family Resource Center, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Village School of North Bennington, Brookdale Fillmore Pond, Harvest House, St. Peter's Episcopal Church, Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, the Vets Home, the Y, UCS and Head Start, and the Homeless Coalition, not to mention the Bennington Police Department, various other members of town staff. These are people that are stepping up to make Bennington a better community, and they are to be commended and thanked. And I am incredibly appreciative that you got such a response. And so thank you to you and to all of them.
Thank you.
So that said, anything from the community?
Debbie Matt, Bennington. Do the 10 below zero standard to open, is that other states' temperature as well as Vermont? And is there any chance of getting that lowered?
Raised. Believe it or not, it was 15 below. We had to fight to get it to 10. I don't know what other states are doing, honestly. We were too busy writing this grant and fighting just to get it higher. We were trying for 0. And it might have been actually worse. When I finally got involved in the fight, it was still at 15 below 0. In fact, I remember in our meeting, Chief had to correct me because I accidentally said 15 because it was still in my head. So we're kind of happy it's 10, even though it's still disgusting.
Is the original wind chill factor in there?
Yes, 100%. Feels like, yeah.
All right, then I will call the vote. All in favor of accepting the cold weather emergency response plan annexed, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Was there a motion for discussion?
It's not really discussion, it's just a question. I didn't want to bring too much up.
Okay, Sarah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we're so over time. Just a brief question. Was that -10 wind chill by AHS? Just a yes or no? If you don't know, just you don't know.
By AHS, what do you mean?
AHS, or is that?
By A, no,
Yeah.
it is, I don't know who put it there, but it's the National Weather Service. They're using one site, and it must be, feels like -10 below for 4 or more hours during the duration of 7, I think it's 7 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Okay, thank you.
It has to be 4 consecutive hours.
Yes, 4 consecutive hours.
Okay.
So we use, just so you all know, before you continue on, we are using the National Weather Service out of Albany, New York. We are not using the National Weather Service out of Burlington. It's just a different game.
No, I mean, were the guidelines by AHS to have that?
Were the guidelines set by AHS?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yep, that's what I wondered. Thank you.
Okay. So again, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? And abstentions? Nancy abstains. Right. Thank you very much, both of you, for your time this evening. I know you were up there longer than you expected, but this is important work, and we want to make sure it was done properly.
And just as I depart here, I just want to say thank you to everybody in Bennington that really took to heart our media releases and were self-prepared for this storm. I actually took the time much to my wife's dismay, I went into 3 different grocery stores here in Bennington just because I was curious. The bread and the canned goods and the milk and coffee creamer and all that stuff, had to be restocked in different stores, and it looked like people were in certain stores buying the essentials, so we appreciate people being prepared for this. So it just shows that people are listening. So we're going to head out now. We're going over to the shelter, which opened an hour ago, and thanks for listening.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you very much.
If anyone ever has another question, call me anytime, too.
Thanks, Roxanne.
Just about everywhere.
Roxanne, keep referring to the number of people that the organization is saving. I'm sorry, I was just saying, you said earlier that there were 2 people in that shelter on the first night, and you referred to it as 2 people that you saved. We need to continue to talk that way, because the volume of people that we can save is...
Everybody pay attention tomorrow. We'll all be, there's 5 of us that are via Zoom or in person, via Zoom, obviously. We're testifying at the state next month.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
All right, already at the podium, we have Shannon Barsati, who is going to...
I don't have Jonah here as my tech support, so I don't know why the screen is not up, so we're going to have to fiddle with it a little bit. Let's see.
All right.
Probably shut down, Shannon.
Yeah, probably just stopped, but this is my tech advice is always unplug and replug and see if that works. And sometimes it does. Yeah, we just need to get the, we just need the screen to be working, so sometimes you just have to turn it on and off. Oh, I didn't. I know, exactly, right? All right. Nothing's happening, Dan. It was working earlier, so. Oh, it's coming. Okay, great. So I'll try to get a second wind here. I'm here just to give a brief report on the Economic Development Committee. So while we're waiting for this to come up, just to let everyone know that this is a new committee. It's a subcommittee of the Bennington Select Board, led by the chair of the committee, Clark Adams, and also includes Jim Sullivan and Jackie Matz, with support from the town staff and representatives from BCRC, the Bennington County Regional Commission. The purpose of the committee or subcommittee is to act as an information gathering and strategic planning task force that then reports back to the select board. And the committee can also invite guests from partner organizations such as the Better Bennington Corporation, the Chamber, local banks, and developers. And I wanted to give Clark a minute to say a few words as he is the chair.
Yeah, I want to thank our chair and our town manager for approving this committee. As everyone is pretty much aware, here in town, housing is a critical issue, not just here in our town, but nationwide. And it's also a corner or a keystone for development. Businesses aren't going to come to town if they don't have places for their employees to live. Our grand list isn't going to grow if we don't bring businesses and more people to town, and our quality of life is going to suffer. So we're talking with, what I'd say, key players, whether it be in the financial aspect, real estate, developers, actually construction people, any strategic and municipal planning folks. We've even roped in our legislatures. We have one of the legislators who sits in with some of these meetings. And the plan is to come up with a pathway to expand the availability of housing. I want to be clear about something because there's a concern. We're not going into the housing business. We're not going to be, go see the town office to get a place to live. No, that's not what we're doing. We want to make it as easy as possible for people who want to expand the housing footprint in this town to do so. We want to do everything we can to reduce obstructions and to accelerate the process. It's kind of like supply and demand. I hear a lot about how expensive housing is, but I strongly believe that the more housing available, the lower the prices are going to be. And again, conversely, landlords have to pay their bills too, and when the tax bases are narrow and our taxes go up, that affects landlords, which means it affects renters. So again, if we can bring more housing into the market and broaden that tax base, I think we're going to lower cost across the board. We're available if there's people out there in town who have ideas or concerns about housing development or even just general economic development of Bennington. Please don't hesitate to come see us or give us a call. Jim, Jackie, and to some extent, I know Dan's got a lot on his shoulders, but our new town housing or development or director of development, he's going to be a part of this program too. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have some concerns. And they said we've been kind of on the down low. We're going to talk about some things in this presentation I think the folks in town are going to be happy about. We don't have the full details because a lot of it is other people's business. We know what they're doing, but we just know it as interested observers, and hopefully when we get firm information for public consumption, we will be glad to pass that on. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, Clerk. So we are talking about Bennington and development, economic development here in Bennington, but I think it's important to look at the larger context, especially of Vermont. So I don't know if you all had a chance to read, there was a recent commentary in the Bennington Banner from the Vermont Chamber of Commerce. And they were talking about the state of Vermont's economy, and there were some sobering statistics that they were sharing, that Vermont is struggling with population loss, an aging population, limited economic diversification, slow job growth, and a lack of affordable housing. Despite these challenges, on a positive note, Vermont ranks near the top in quality of life and safety metrics. So, those are things that we want to lean into. And when we look at the committee's task, it's really to identify concrete steps for economic action in the coming year. And the long-term goals of the committee are to strengthen the local economy, grow the tax base, attract private investment, and improve the quality of life, both for our residents and the people who want to visit Bennington. So some guiding principles of the committee are to leverage outside funding. So we do this by building partnerships with private developers, financial institutions, and philanthropy, pursuing state and federal grants and state programs such as the new Community and Housing Infrastructure Program, and using tax credits strategically, such as historic tax credits and new market tax credits, which you might remember from the Ben High project and the Putnam project. We also want to prioritize impact and feasibility, so focusing on high-impact projects. For example, the more housing that we add downtown, that helps downtown development in general, because it's more people living downtown, it's more people shopping downtown, eating downtown, et cetera. So that's an example of high-impact projects. We also want to, as much as we can, reduce regulatory barriers to private development. And then we want to measure what matters. So that includes tax base growth, population growth, wage growth, jobs growth, the number of housing units that have been added, and our downtown vacancy rates. And finally, we want to engage the community. So we want to engage residents and business owners. We want to build trust through transparency, and we want to maintain the current momentum that we have. So since the committee met, we've had just a handful of meetings. We've really looked at some of the town capacity and opportunities for the existing projects that are happening now and how we can support them, housing development, as Clark mentioned, workforce development, downtown vibrancy, quality of life initiatives. So that includes things like bike and pedestrian pathways and outdoor recreation that, gets people outside and enjoying our environment. Regional collaboration, state-level regulatory reform. Those are kind of the big topics that we started with. And when we talk about current projects, we have a lot of current projects. So I think this is something like the chief said, Bennington really is leading here, and we want to let everyone know that. And obviously, we can't take the credit for all of these private developments, but we can say that I think really we do everything we can to support private developers when they come to Bennington. And that includes the Office of Community Development, that includes the town manager, that includes our planning and permitting department, our zoning administrator. I mean, we really do everything that we can. So some of the projects, and this photo is of a recent tour of Ben High, and it shows the project under construction and some of the historic artifacts that are being unveiled as the building is being renovated. So Ben High, of course, you've heard a lot about. That's a big project that's going to be adding 39 more housing units downtown in the old Bennington High School, as well as community space for recreation and a senior center and a child care center. The Everett Estate, formerly the Southern Vermont College campus, is now under contract, and the AWRE, the Alfred Weisman Real Estate Group, is the developer of that project, and all of their work that they're doing with the permits are underway, all of the design work. The Energizer, the former Energizer building, just the closing on that property just happened on Friday, so that's really exciting news for Bennington, and that's going to be called Monument Place. And it's going to be both housing and commercial development, mostly housing, but also some commercial space. And then the Putnam Block, we all know about the Putnam Block and the Phase 1 of the Putnam Block. Phase 2 and 3 are coming, and they're in development right now. That's kind of turning the corner along Washington Avenue there and the old Greenberg's, lumberyard. The Walloomsac Inn just changed hands and is now being developed with the hopes of becoming an inn again. The Bradford Mill also used to be called the Lauzone Machine Shop. I can't remember or factory. That is now under construction for 30 more housing units, and then multiple small-scale housing projects. So I did the math on these, and I started adding it up, and all of these housing developments are going to be over 300 new housing units, all within our downtown area. So that's huge, and I think that that's something that we really need to keep, shouting from the rooftops, because so many towns across Vermont right now are facing the same issue, and they're just really at square one. I mean, they're really just trying to get started with how do we develop housing, and Bennington already has so much happening. So I'm very excited to be part of it all. And our focus has been on housing development because we're hearing from our largest employers, including the hospital and the school system, that they're really having trouble recruiting new employees because they can't find suitable housing. So, we've all been talking about this for some time, and it's an important focus of this committee. So some of the ways that we support these private developers in their projects in both housing and commercial development is that we have, obviously we are not developers, but we have an important role to play. So we facilitate developers' access to federal, state, and municipal funding. That's one way that we support them. We also coordinate with state and regional agencies and federal agencies and with our elected representatives. So we really, as soon as we find out that there's a project happening, we look at what are all the resources that we can share with developers to really help them through this process. And we advocate to the state on behalf of these projects. So for example, the Energizer facility, the now owner of that space, the state came down during the Scott administration did a tour of Bennington County, and we did a tour of that whole facility with the owner to really talk about, well, here's why this project is just so important for Bennington. So we do a lot of advocacy work in our role. We also invest in infrastructure. Obviously, that's what the town is known for, taking care of our roads and our bridges and all of the things that are part of our infrastructure. We also invest in quality of life initiatives. So, like, for example, the rail trail here. All of these projects that we do for quality of life are very popular with our residents. So that's something we want to continue. And we invest in town marketing. And the reason that I mention that is that our town marketing campaign is free to all of our local businesses. We don't ask anyone to pay for that marketing. It's part of something that we do as a town. So those are all of our current efforts. And this committee is focused on, all right, what do we want to prioritize and study and really dig into so that we can put even more of our resources to work here. So the priority areas are housing development, number one, downtown vibrancy, and quality of life investments. So how can we build on the momentum that we have now and do more with a targeted approach to these three priority areas? The common theme here is that by developing more housing, investing more in our downtown, and in amenities for both residents and visitors, we attract more people to move to Bennington, to start businesses here, and to invest in Bennington. So priority area number one, housing development. We've already talked a bit about some of the ways that we do that is we support private and nonprofit housing developers. We connect them to sources of capital. We implement tax abatement strategies, for example, for some of the larger projects. We reduce regulatory barriers. And as I mentioned before, this community housing and infrastructure program through the state, CHIP, is an important new program. It's project-based tax increment financing. So I'm not going to get into TIF because it's too late in the day to do that. But it's really actually a very innovative program because we did used to have a TIF district and we don't anymore, in part because for Bennington, there was a lot of regulation around it, but it didn't, we already have so much infrastructure, but we also, to do TIF projects, it's a complex, it's something that we have to bring to the voters every time, right? And so CHIP is different in that the developers themselves can take on that debt and lead that project. They partner with the town, and they do a development agreement with the town, but it's really it can be led by the developers. So that was something that the state developed recently. They're just rolling it out, and we're learning about it and how we can work with developers to help them finance their projects through this program. Also, we identify, this committee is looking to identify ways to increase the capitalization of the town's revolving loan fund for housing development. So we have a revolving loan fund. We've had it for a number of years. It can be used for both small business loans, but also for housing loans. And it's interesting to me that I've been in this role now, I think almost 7 years, and this is the first year that we actually gave out more town loans for housing than we did for business development. Again, speaking to the need for housing. And if we had more funding, we could do more with this. So we gave out $350,000 in town loans for housing development this year. Number 3, develop priority areas for housing and create incentive packages for these sites or buildings. So that could include, encouraging more upper story dwellings in our downtown. Also accessory dwelling units, which is, I think the older term for that were mother-in-law apartments, or a garage apartment, a small unit that could be added to your existing parcel. And there are other communities around the state who have come up with programs around ADUs and guides for those. And that's something we want to also encourage because we want more homegrown development. They can't all be big multi-unit projects, right? So that's some examples of some of the work around housing development. Downtown vibrancy, we want to create an inventory of residential and commercial development opportunities in and near downtown. So we really want to identify all of our spaces downtown, what they're being used for, which spaces are vacant, what are some opportunities that we can come up with. We want to encourage renovation and occupancy of vacant properties and really target some of those chronically vacant properties that are downtown. We want to improve walkability, placemaking, safety, and beautification efforts downtown. And it's important to say we're already doing some of these things, and we partner with the Better Bennington Corporation. This is a huge part of their work, is making downtown more attractive and bringing more people in through events, right? So, but what are other ways we can do that? So this committee is really going to be talking a lot about how can we invest more in downtown, and how can we identify ways to increase the capitalization of the town's revolving loan fund for business development. Same thing, if we had more in our loan fund, we could do more. And it's a really successful program because these loans, they're low interest loans. They are intended for gaps in financing, and they're kind of quick turnaround, and we've just been very successful in supporting small business development. And our third priority area is quality of life investments. So this is a photo of the Bennington Skate Park. I think that's probably from the opening. And that's an example of something that's just been incredibly popular. We want to do more of these kinds of projects that really are for everyone in the community. And so we want to create an inventory of strategic investments to improve the community, and we need community input for that. And we already have some good examples of community input through our community surveys that Jonah is going to be speaking about at a meeting soon, getting the results of our latest survey. We've done a lot of outreach with the Bennington County Regional Commission and for the new town plan that we can draw from as well. And then there are other opportunities, maybe listening sessions from the select board, if that's something that you want to do to really focus on quality of life initiatives. We want to identify new sources of funding for the select board to pursue, because again, we've done a lot with grants, and we'll continue to look for grants, especially around recreational opportunities, but there aren't that many grants for these kinds of projects. So we really have to think about other ways that we can find funding. And then we want to interview key groups to determine what brings new people to Bennington and encourages them to stay here. So we want to talk with the Chamber and Shire's Young Professionals, with other top employers, like I mentioned, with the hospital and the school system, and the Better Bennington Corporation, and convene more folks to really get at this issue of what makes Bennington special and why do you want to be here. So those are our priority areas, and our next steps are to develop a work plan for each priority area and to create a timeline with deliverables, and then come back to the select board and report on our progress. So that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I'll start again with Ed.
He saw my hand first, and so thank you. A couple of quick questions. First of all, thank you, and thank you for the folks who stepped up and this board for putting that together. The first one is the structure of the committee. Does that committee now exist as an offshoot of this board in perpetuity? Because it is necessary, in my opinion. And my fear is that a couple of people stepped up, asked Shannon for a minute, and we've got a lot of progress made, but do we have the stamp of this thing needs to be endorsed and become a part of the regular work that we do? Are we moving the marketing efforts are we moving the marketing efforts of the town sort of under the purview of this group?
They're not. We didn't call out marketing as a priority, but I think it definitely fits under, especially when you think about downtown vibrancy.
I saw that, and it jumped out at me.
Yeah.
I thought, if that group could be involved in that, it might make a good. good synergy.
Yeah, I mean, if I could, because we have talked a fair bit about marketing on the committee and its importance. And, one of the challenges we have is a very, limited marketing budget. So, how to either expand that budget and/or, enhance our partnership with others who are doing marketing to really bring the message home. But, yeah, there's no question that that's been a topic.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That as well. I think Shannon also spoke about some of the inventories that we're looking to put together of sort of turnkey opportunities for folks to come in and do housing development or economic development. And so I think once we have those, then we'll have something to market, something that we can provide and say, hey, look, here are opportunities in Bennington. And so I agree, and we're working on the materials for that.
So I would encourage the group to, with the direction of the board, to form formally and then put this group on the same, with the same effort and visibility as the others that we interact with. I'm thinking liaison, I'm thinking all these things for cohesiveness. So I'll leave it up to you guys to think about that. Will the BBC become more involved with this organization?
Yes, we definitely want to invite them to come to the meetings. And actually, one of our representatives from BCRC, Scott Grimm-Lyon, he is also joining the BBC board. So he'll he could represent both organizations.
Good. Thank you.
My microphone's dead, Shirley. On terms of permanency, I think we have discussed that in the sense of basically renaming the community development department to reflect the efforts of the committee. And I thought, and did forward battle with Jim, that he actually do a proposal to do something to create that tonight. But,
Don't take my thunder away, Clark.
I wanted to answer about, permanency, and I can't imagine why these efforts aren't permanent. We have to create a town department. And it's responsibility. So even outside sources will know who to go to make up town.
With this relationship with the people that have stepped up on this board's role.
Right, and as I said, we've been reaching out in the state, so to speak, developers. There's a symposium that Shannon attended that addressed development, by double standard. There are developers in town who we've been speaking to who are involved in other elements. So, yeah, there's an element of permanency here that we hope to validate many.
Jim?
Yeah, thanks. I won't ask a question. But no, I wanted to say I've enjoyed being part of the committee discussions over the past few months, and thanks to Clark and Jackie, I think, who really both had a hand in pushing the formation of it, and to all the staff and the other representatives from different organizations that have participated. I think it's been really helpful. It does point to some of the really unique challenges that a town like Bennington has because, by almost any measure other than being a municipality in a small state like Vermont, we're a very small town. And it's a real challenge to do big things when you're as small as we are. We don't have a lot of resources, we're not developers. The town's not a developer. We don't aspire to be developers. So we have to find the things that we can do that support developers, that support business entrepreneurs, that, among them, bringing people to the community and helping housing developers create the places for those people to live so that they can come here, and everything else can flow from that. So it's a big challenge, and at the same time, a really small town in Vermont can do some really small things, and really make a big difference. You could build 500 feet of sidewalk in, the town of Stamford, and it's the talk of the town for, the next 3 years. In Bennington, you've got to do a lot of things, and I think Shannon did a pretty good job of laying out the menu of things that a municipality can do, and supporting developers and providing the environment that makes the community a welcoming place for people and for businesses, and to find the missing pieces and the gaps that we can help fill in to allow those business folks to be successful. So that is a challenge for us, to find what to do the really impactful things that a small town can do. And, I worked my whole career in planning and community development, and I have to say that for pretty much my entire career, nobody knew what I did, because planning and community development, right, Shannon? What's that? So I think Clark had a good suggestion that if we lay out specifically in the name of the department what those key features are, housing, community, and economic development. So we thought that it would maybe make sense to formally begin referring to it as the Department of Housing, Community, and Economic Development, and then people would say, oh, okay. That is the resource, and hopefully it's a bigger resource in the future. But right now that is at least the center place where people can go and look to for information and leads on those critical aspects of helping to support the growth of the community. So with that, if you don't mind, Clark, then I'd make that motion that we establish. We perhaps rename the Community Development Department the Department of Housing, Community, and Economic Development.
We have a motion and a second.
Are we going to call it yet?
Call for discussion.
Let's...
You could hold on.
Let's hold off on the motion just while we have the general questions about the presentation, and then move on to that, I think. Nancy?
Shannon, when you're talking regional collaboration, are you talking staying within Bennington County?
Generally, yes, but there are times when it might make sense to promote something, in the Berkshires that we're doing in Bennington, right? Or in Hoosick Falls, just in the sense of, when we're talking about marketing, or, we are a tri-state area, so.
When you're talking about investing in infrastructure, you want the town to do more?
Well, we're already doing that. So I just thought it was important to call that out, is that, having really quality infrastructure is an important piece of what makes a community attractive and a place that you want to live.
But I remember when it was announced 10 years ago, the state awarded us a TIF for the downtown. And I remember officials saying, there's no way our taxpayers could ever afford to do all the public infrastructure needed for all these big plans for the future of Bennington. And it never made sense when the town walked away from the TIF 2 years ago. Where that money's going to come from is beyond me. And even the auditor, when he was here last February, that we hired to do the town books, and many schools and towns in Vermont and Maine hire him, he recommended we look into a TIF. And I said, well, we hadn't walked away, and he still recommended it. So again, all the plans. I think the number one focus needs to be on our private business owners, the people who have their money tied into it, who are going to lose their money. I think we do too much talking to people who don't have any real stake in it, where they can be involved, but if they walk away, if it fails, it doesn't impact them. Did you say you went on a tour of Energizer Friday?
No, during the Capitol for a day when the Governor Scott's administration came down to Bennington.
Did he go?
That was about a month ago, I think.
Oh, okay.
Can I jump in here? Nancy, a couple things I want to point out. One of the big things that we have been working with is bringing capital in, private capital, into this town. And the infrastructure changes or improvements that go along with that are things that the CHIP program also, which again is money external to the town taxpayers that will go into these investments by outside money that of course will increase our grand list. We have at least, when you say regional, yeah, I believe the gentleman who bought the Energizer building is from here up in Burlington.
He's in the Montpelier area, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put blinders on us saying we're only going to look here. Anyone who's willing to come to our town, in my opinion, anyone who's willing to come to our town, or anyone we can attract to our town, geographically it's not important to me. If some guy in Wyoming wants to come to Bennington and put a facility here that's going to enhance our economic and quality of life experience here in town, I will reach out to him. And I will do everything I can to get him or anyone else like that here. When I say him, I'm not saying sex, I'm not saying whoever. Somebody who wants to come to this town and invest in, there is no reasonable constraint in my mind. And I believe the committee is willing to work with anyone from anywhere. And the big push I see spoke to the developer, one of the things he was concerned about is, are we going to get tied up with a bunch of government money and programs? And I said, I'm not really interested in doing that. And he goes, good, that's just what will bring me in to this circle of actually you folks are planning. People with money want to come to this town, spend that money, and get a return on their investment, and that return on their investment will spill over into hiring people from Bennington, expanding our grand list, and making Bennington a more attractive place for other entities. So I understand your concerns about taxes and the infrastructure funding, but we're specifically targeting private investment to avoid increasing burden or potential tax burden on the people of Bennington. That's been the thrust of this whole committee, that we want to get private investment into this town, to revitalize this town.
And Shannon, or Dan maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't CHIP kind of meant to look at some of the challenges posed by the TIF program and try to make that better?
Exactly, and I'll speak to that in just a second. I just wanted to piggyback on what Clark said, and thank you for bringing up the private investment piece, and that we are really focused on that. I failed to mention when I was running through this presentation and talking about the current projects, which most of which are still in development that were on that list. But in 2025, this past year, I wanted to mention that over $17 million was invested in our downtown area. And of that, 11.5 million was private investment. 5.5 million was public money, and that included, some federal and state money that went to Ben High for all the remediation. That included our work with the skate park, with the lead lines on Main Street, and then all the work around the library. So those were the public monies. But, 11.5 million in private investment. That's a big number for Bennington, and there's going to be much more next year. So that's just something that we want to keep reiterating. And to the point about TIF, I think Dan's been doing this a lot longer than I have and can speak to the history of TIF, but that's exactly why CHIP was created, because a lot of communities were finding that they weren't using their TIF districts for various reasons, and a lot of it is just the complexity, and so this was a way to simplify the process, to make it more project-based, and not only within a district that you had to make a TIF district. I don't know if you want to say more about that, Tina.
Well, just other things. Every time we watch another property taken off the tax rolls, our economy goes backwards. And I don't understand why the legislature has never passed a law limiting the percentage of properties that can be off tax rolls in towns. I mean, I think people would be shocked if they saw the list of properties and the value of those properties that pay nothing. And I really wish I'd start hearing something about trying to keep Vermonters to stay. I know there's a big rush to want to get new people to come here, but the people who've been paying the budgets and the bonds, it's like there's a big push. We have to get them out, get all the new people to come in. So hearing this list, I have to say, this is basically what I heard from the TIF, and this is what I heard 5 years ago when I went through the plans that the Planning Commission and the BCRC brought to the Select Board for approval. So I think we need to focus on private business owners, and I just think we need to listen to our citizens. I just don't think anybody's listening to private business owners.
Tom, could I respond to that? Because I want to take exception to the comment that we're trying to push Vermonters out. I think the exact opposite, and Clark touched on this very clearly, that we want to reduce the tax burden on the folks that already live here, not increase it. And the only way we do that is to grow our grand list, to increase the vitality of this town, make it more attractive for outside investment. And that makes it easier for folks to live here who have to pay the taxes to pay for those services if that grand list is increased. If we're successful in redeveloping the Southern Vermont College Everett Estate property, that'll be the largest increase to our grand list ever. And that'll decrease the tax burden on people that live here in this town immediately as soon as that goes on the tax rolls. So I just don't think that's a fair statement, Nancy, to say that this group wants to push Vermonters out of Bennington. I just categorically reject that.
That has been the general attitude. All we've heard is...
It's not our general attitude.
No. As a Flatlander, been here now for 5 years or so, the one thing that I've been lamenting is the flight of retirees, the flight of the retirees' children to go see their grandchildren down in the Carolinas. And one of the issues we looked at, and Shannon discovered this in speaking with one of the financial institutions, the accessory dwelling units. The idea of having that grandmother-in-law type apartment on the property to keep our young people, let somebody be able to sell their house to their kid and they can move into the backyard or a modified garage or something. So we're actively seeking options to keep our population here, and more importantly, to get people, bring your grandchildren, have their kids, bring your grandkids back here to Bennington. And we can do that by having jobs and affordable, accessible housing. So there may have been some attitudes in the past, but I can tell you now, my personal feelings and what I hear from the board and the dozens of people, developers, everyday people walking the streets, and even some of the moneyed people, and we want an influx. We want retention, and we want an influx. And I will say, I'm not going to put words in other people's mouth, but I'm going to tell you now, anyone who says that we are working to not pay attention to the local businessmen and the residents here, they're 100% wrong, and I reject that completely.
Yeah. And if I could just add, one of the things that we talked about, that one of Shannon's slides talked about, was talking to people about what brings them to Bennington and keeps them in Bennington. And certainly, core among that is the youth of the community. What is it that would make them want to stay or enable them to stay in the community? That's critically important. That's a conversation that we'll have here, and we're having here in Bennington, and is also a statewide conversation. I'm on the statewide Workforce Development Board, and retention of our youth is absolutely critical. And you don't retain your youth by letting your community go stagnant. You retain your youth by providing the kind of dynamic, growing community that they want to stay in and that they see a future in. So that's the kind of information that we're looking at, and that's the kind of future that we're trying to help cultivate for people so that they will want to stay here.
I'll just go on record as well to say that just because we often speak about making Bennington an attractive place for people to move, for young people to move, to attract people to this area, that doesn't mean that we're looking to displace people that are currently here, right? I think that's part of why so much of the focus is on housing and making sure that there is that availability of housing stock. I think about the house that I purchased just over a year ago at this point, that had a single woman living in it, an old lady that passed away, that was still in a two-story, four-bedroom house that could have a whole family in it, and very likely was still in that place that she couldn't go upstairs in because she couldn't find another place in this community to move to. And so by building that housing stock, we allow that rotation in housing to take place so that those large houses can get freed up for families that want to move here without having the older folks that can no longer use the stairs or whatever their situation is, that they also have a place in this town that they can also exist in. And so while we do talk often about making this an attractive place for young families to move to and having that economic opportunity available for them, I don't want that to get confused with some idea that we're trying to kick people out of this community, because that's absolutely not what we're focused on.
It doesn't have to be either or.
Yep. If I could.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. This is one of the points that I'm up here. I wanted more housing in our in our community, and I see, I'm Bennington young, I guess. So, it's all relative. So,
hey, if you're under 50, you're young and
yeah, I'm Bennington young and Vermont young. So this is one of the reasons that I'm up here. We need more housing in Vermont so that people in our community in Vermont can move here and work here. So I appreciate your presentation.
Ed?
So this is a really good opportunity for me to say this again with a little bit more period at the end. It is important. It is the renaming of the Community Development Department going to legitimize and permanent and give this committee a permanent place to work? Because there are obviously people right on this board who don't think that's a good idea, and I would encourage us to dot our I's, cross our T's, make sure this committee exists in the legitimate way that it needs to, and it needs to carry out the work. This is probably one of the biggest things that this community needs, in my opinion, because it addresses, and I'm going to say this to the public who stayed with us this long, everything that we're talking about tonight is in an effort to increase the tax base that lowers taxes. That is what all of this is designed to do. And if we improve the quality of life along the way, wouldn't that be terrific? So I'm very interested in knowing how the motion on the floor tonight covers my concerns.
I hear you, Ed, and I think I agree with you. I think it should be two separate motions if we're going to rename personally. I mean, let me go back to how this got started.
Yes.
Okay. Last spring, Clark approached me and was very passionate that we should have some sort of subcommittee from the select board working with this. And he expressed during that he had been having conversations with Jackie. And I thought, we've got two people here with very different backgrounds coming from very different directions. That's a good thing, I think, because the more diversity we have in thought processes, I think we come up with newer ideas. And then I thought, well, we could have one more board member on there, and Jim has been working in this for his entire professional life. So he was very gracious.
The key there was, for those that don't know, we can have one more board member to avoid a quorum when we are not conducting official town business.
Exactly. So I said to these guys, and I asked Dan to bring town staff in and bring us something to convince the rest of this board that this work is absolutely necessary, and that's where we are tonight.
I think you might have hit the nail on the head for me. Guys, I struggled with the way that the committee emerged, only because it was, had I known that you were working to get us to this point today to ask us to do something, I would have been much more comfortable knowing that I was going to see it and vote for or against.
Then I apologize for not communicating
and
that
I'm
to you as
thrilled
well.
with the work that this committee has done.
I'd like to say, I don't think that the name does more than just kind of send a signal, but I do think that if you have a department, Shannon's department, that covers those areas. It does make sense, the planning department has a planning commission, and so I think having a standing committee that works with the town department makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, so perhaps in a way, the naming of the department and the formation of the committee does create sort of a sense of permanence, even if it's not in statute.
As long as we do connect the two, even if we deal with it in two separate motions.
Right.
We just need to connect the two, because I'd like to see that the relationship from this board stays in that department to support it, because I think that Shannon needs this support to get to move on a number of these other initiatives.
And I also didn't mean to imply that everyone else on this board doesn't have valuable input to this process, but we have the opportunity now to make our opinions known. I know Sarah and Nancy have opinions that they want to put forward, so I think we should be conscious of that as well. But I do agree that making this a permanent subcommittee does have value. And I have no issue, actually, with renaming Shannon's department, because I think it makes what she does more clear.
It's a more accurate reflection of the work
Yeah,
that I've been
exactly.
doing.
It takes out a lot of the ambiguity.
And because it's there, does it then lend itself to Shannon seeking the support and whatever else she might need from the sources where she can now get it? The two have to stay together. Let's admit that we are all temporary, right? Including you, as much as we love you.
We're all temporary.
Some of us more temporary than others.
I don't want to ignore the people on my right. Sarah, you haven't spoken at all
I'm
yet.
prepared to, I have less opinions at this time of day, but I'm prepared to support that motion, and I think this is something we should revisit once a year just to see how people are doing on this newly formed board, and if we should maybe switch the people out and how that is going as we do the liaisons.
Nancy?
Many people have been concerned for years. The lack of private sector jobs with good pay and benefits. If you don't have a degree, it's very difficult to find something where you can work 40 hours a week and support yourself. And to me, if you don't have those jobs, all this extra housing, I don't know. But how would this work, the 3 board members on the committee? How would you do it with open meeting law without violating that? How would the rest of us know what's going on?
Because we can discuss it now.
Yeah, I can answer that, Nancy. So it's very clear, Vermont law is very clear that unless there's a quorum, there is no open meeting law requirement. But also, unless there's a quorum, the town cannot act, this board cannot act. So that this committee, although they meet regularly, have no authority to act outside of the auspices of the entire board. So they will meet, presuming that they're made a permanent standing committee of the subcommittee of the select board. They'll meet regularly and they'll report regularly to this board, because they have absolutely no authority on their own. They have only the ability to advise, recommend, and support this board in their decision making regarding anything that needs to happen. So it's absolutely appropriate. It's done throughout government millions and millions of times, where subcommittees are formed to help do the heavy lifting and bring that work back to the board. And I am very, very, I do want to just follow up and say that I am very, very supportive, and I think it is an absolutely brilliant move to make the Economic Development Committee a permanent standing subcommittee of the Select Board to support the efforts of the newly renamed Department of Housing, Community and Economic Development.
Provided we vote to do that.
Provided you vote to do that. But I do really appreciate Jim's discussion of the Planning Commission, working with the Planning Director. And what that will do is it will help this board give direction to Shannon's department so that we can focus on the priorities that have been identified. And when folks say, well, why is she working on that? Or why is the town doing that? We say, well, the Economic Development Committee developed this plan, it's presented to the select board, and they endorsed it, and now we're implementing it. And that's why we're doing it. And I think that's going to be incredibly powerful and helpful and facilitate staff efforts and on behalf of the town as a whole. So,
and it also, I think, gives a board of 7 is not particularly nimble.
No.
And I think having these subcommittees gives them the space where they can explore things that, if we were to explore them here, would take forever. We'd never get anything done.
Midnight.
And I'm sure they're going to have ideas that they reject as well, and I'm sure they have already. So I think that's important to remember, that this board has the final say, but they have the capability to actually do a little breakout and try to hear different ideas and then come to a consensus amongst themselves what they think would be the best things to bring before this board. And if you have questions about what things they might have rejected, you could certainly ask them next time they report.
If I could, one of the things. Oh, okay.
I just had a quick comment on what you said, and then to Nancy's point. I totally agree with you, Nancy, that workforce development and job creation is absolutely essential for economic development, obviously, and for retaining our young people here in Bennington. We talked a lot about it, but we decided it wasn't going to be the top priority of just this committee because there are other groups working on it, and we don't have as much leverage really as a town around that particular issue. But we work with the BCRC. They are on the Workforce and Education Committee that regularly meets, and we're getting updates from them around that and any other ways that we can support workforce development, but it just did not rise to the top priority. And then the other piece about being nimble, Tom, I think is really important because, we're going to scare entrepreneurs away if everything we talk about is in a big public meeting on CAT TV. I mean, these are private developers who are having, they're talking about their real estate transactions that are in process. So these aren't public meetings that are recorded. These are discussions with private developers, and that's the reason for that. Clark had mentioned that earlier.
One of the things I want to bring to Nancy is our committee here. One of the things we decided upon was that our composition would be floating. And I mean in the sense that, like, we've had state legislators sit in the room with us. We've had people from BCRC sit with us. And we, are speaking with financial institutions. There's no absolute people going to come in and out. And as Shannon alluded to, those aren't kind of people who want to or are available to sit here and wait 2 or 3 hours to answer a question or to present information which will generate more questions, which will keep them here later. I think it's a very functional working group. I think we started meeting in August, and here we are in almost February, and we've gotten to the point where now we have a framework, a foundation we can move forward with. And I think if we were to revert back to the ponderous board meetings and all that kind, we would alienate people, like you said, and also just mire ourselves in minutia that isn't necessary.
So how often would this subcommittee be presenting here, updating the rest of us?
At this point, we meet monthly, and basically as we reach the point where we have something of substance to move forward with, where we have to come to the board and say, hey, here's what we'd like to do. What do you think? So, I mean, I can't say we meet the board every month, but we meet monthly, and based on what issues we address or obstacles we may need to have resolved with the whole board, then we bring it to the board.
Tom, if I could.
Go ahead, Ed.
This is just a follow-up, and hopefully we're going to close that piece of this discussion soon. Workforce development, we've gone full circle in this conversation that Shannon's been leading. The start of this conversation was the fact that we have people who cannot find homes, who our hiring companies would like to recruit.
Right.
The hospital, the school system. I was a publisher of the Bennington Banner for 11 years, and I could not encourage young potential journalists to come and live here because I could not find them housing. So this addresses that. I'm going to get off of that now. Thanks.
Housing and attracting businesses are not separate issues. They're the same issue.
Yep.
And the town has a particular leverage there. You know, there are a number of state programs that are some are old, some are new, around housing development that the towns can participate in. And that's part of why the role of community development director was even created, was to be able to access those funds through community development block grants. So that's really like an anchor piece of what towns can do.
And when you talked about the town revolving loan program, would you know roughly how much money we have left right now to loan?
Right now, it's fairly low because we've given out quite a few loans recently, so we have only $200,000 in the fund.
We have what?
$200,000.
Wow. That's available to loan.
That's available to loan.
That's a great thing. That means there's money out there.
Well, there's over $1 million out in
No, I understand.
Yeah.
That's great. We're not sitting on the money. I love it.
No, and also there's some big loans that are going to start being paid back, like the Putnam loan, for example, in this coming year. So, but that, again, so we need to figure out how do we get more funds into that revolving loan fund.
Question on just what you said. You said the Putnam, have they not been paying since they got?
It was a deferred loan. So the loan that was given to them, actually I had just started. I remember having like deer in headlights at the first meeting, having to talk about the Putnam Community Development Block Grant. So that was 7 years ago. And it was a 7-year deferred loan that they received from the town for $350,000, and now it's going to start getting paid back.
And the loan the rest of the board gave the Ben High from the revolving loan, is that deferred too?
For the Ben High project,
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So that's 7 years too?
I think it is 7 years, yeah.
All right. Could someone restate the motion, please?
I think, as I recall, I moved to rename the Community Development Department the Department of Housing, Community, and Economic Development.
Second? We're starting over again? I second that motion.
All right, any discussion on renaming the department?
Tell me the name again. Housing?
Housing, Community, and Economic Development.
Well, I think economic development should be the priority. Again, if you don't have a local strong economy, you can't fund the rest. And community development, it is a lot of social programs. Well, to fund the social programs, again, you've got to have the local economy. And would anybody support putting economic development back in Shannon's job title?
I think, isn't that what
the motion says that.
Yeah. She's going to be the director of the Department of Housing, Community, and Economic Development.
Your title is community development, correct?
My current title is Community Development Director.
It's soon to change,
but it
apparently.
If we accept this motion, her title will be the director of
Housing, Economic Development.
DHCED. We need an acronym, yeah.
We have a motion on the floor, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Any further discussion on the motion? Anything from the public on the motion?
Public.
All right, then I will call the question on the motion to rename the Community Development Office. Could all those in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nope.
And there's no one left for abstention, so the motion does pass. Thank you. Now, in terms of codifying this as a permanent subcommittee of the Select Board, could I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved. I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
I don't want to delay formalizing this as a permanent committee, but it does, for me, raise questions about who's on the committee, who should be on the committee, how rotation works. Like, I don't know if this is feels like a fully formed strategy to me just yet.
I might not disagree with that line of thinking because we don't want any holes in it. So if it needs more time and the committee comes back to us.
Well, maybe we could just work with Shannon and Dan and come up with some specific guidelines for the committee as far as membership and rotation, and then we could present that at the next meeting.
Maybe something similar to our liaisons.
That makes sense. We can't have a liaison with three other board members.
Right, like, at the rotation of liaisons.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, the membership, it would be rotational, but I think one of the absolute must, of course, Shannon and the new gentleman we just hired.
David Conwell.
New planning director?
Yeah, planning director. I think that person should have a role in this committee.
And we have invited him to start coming to the meetings.
Right, and I know Dan has been present, but to tell you the truth, maybe I'm over my skis. I think Dan's got a full plate. Maybe if we can take a little bit of this off his plate might be helpful too.
Yeah.
Having the town manager as a visiting member, but not a standing member.
I feel like legitimizing this in the way that you guys are working on will bring us to exactly that, because this is not, we don't want the town manager running this committee.
No, not by any stretch. This is a subcommittee of the Select Board. The Select Board, the chair of this committee is a member of the Select Board, and I think it's important that it remains so.
Correct.
I think, if anything, it increases communication from Shannon's office and Dan's office and all these other organizations to this board. Absolutely. So that, I think, is in and of itself valuable.
It's just we're all rowing in the same direction. Right. That's the goal.
So we can come up with a recommended format or structure for the committee with a recommended motion, et cetera, for the next meeting, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And then you guys may feel good about it. You may want to make changes. I don't think we have to do this immediately, but the fact that we know that our intention is for this committee to be permanent, subject to us developing rules and procedures for the committee, certainly I think goes a long ways towards legitimizing the efforts, and we'll keep moving forward and come back to you with that.
I'd like to ask that also.
So should we adopt this subject to procedures? What are the thoughts? So could we adopt this subject to procedures?
I think I'd rather hold off till we have something.
Yeah. Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, Ed.
Can I ask that we put this on an agenda before the election? Because this board owns this, and if there's any change, we ought to get it done under this board.
If it's acceptable, there's a motion on the floor to make this a permanent committee. I would make a motion that we lay this on the table until 2 weeks from today.
You're ready in 2 weeks. I love it.
I can live with that.
Great.
With the contingent upon the town staff input and structure coming back with us.
I don't know, maybe 2 weeks from today, we take it off the table and say we're still not ready, but just that it's on the agenda next time we meet.
Or to our next meeting, which may, I don't have a calendar.
Whatever that is.
It may not be 2 weeks.
Good point.
February 9th.
Going back to what I said earlier about us losing the focus and the oomph of this, don't take too long to come back and tell us how it's formalized, if
I agree. So, can I have a second to the motion to table?
I'll second that. Did somebody make the motion to table? I'll second the motion to table.
All in favor of tabling this until we have at least some guidance from staff that we can discuss?
And the current committee.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
With hesitation, aye.
Any opposed?
Looks like it was unanimous.
Any abstentions? All right. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.
Absolutely. Thank you to the committee.
All right, moving right along. We need to approve the annual town meeting warning. Dan, you want to kick this off?
Yes, so the town meeting warning was included in your packet. This is very straightforward. It includes the warning for the floor meeting and for the Australian ballot the next day. This year's, it's pretty simple. It has essentially the budget and then all the articles for the agencies included. I did, just for fun, since we've been using this format for probably 40 years, I did run it by Meryl, say, hey, are we still doing this right? And she said, yep, you're good. So this has been blessed by our council. And so this is really the business that we must do tonight because we're out of time. So if you guys do approve the annual town meeting warning, I would circulate it for signature, and it will be, we'll start posting it as soon as tomorrow, so we meet all the statutory deadlines for posting and publishing.
And I would add that approving this warning in no way reflects whether you're for or against the budget or anything on the ballot. All the vote tonight is saying that this is what should be presented to the voters. I have reviewed it. It looks to me to be accurate. If anyone had found anything that's inaccurate, I think that's appropriate. But otherwise, I mean, basically, all this is saying is this is the budget that the Select Board adopted, whether you're for or against it. We're sending it to the voters now, and this is what will appear on the ballot. Am I correct?
Yes, yep. In fact, this will go to the folks who print the ballots tomorrow.
So, Tom,
assuming you approve it.
can I make a motion that we approve the warning for the town annual meeting as suggested by the town manager?
A second?
I second.
Okay. Any discussion on the particulars of the warning?
What is the actual budget increase?
We discussed that last time, Nancy. It's the actual proposed tax rate increase is about 8%, and the actual, if you excuse me, I can tell you the actual budget increase. I think most people were focused on.
I thought it was like 8.24. You were waiting to see.
That's not the increase in the budget. That's the proposed increase in the tax rate, the projected increase in the tax rate. So those are two very different things. Unfortunately, they're not directly the same. So the expenditure increase is 7.2%. The projected, and again, we don't know what that'll be, and we expect it to be lower, but we never say that out loud too much because you never know what the grand list is going to come out. But the projected grand list, the projected increase in the taxes based on the grand list that we currently know is 8.24, but the expenditures is 7.2.
The concern I have, most important thing the taxpayers and voters should see is not on the ballot, and that is the $200,000 and change that our taxpayers are supposed to pay for a year's rent at the Ben High with the utilities and the common area maintenance.
Point of order.
It is the responsibility of the voter to educate themselves, and we make every possible resource available. But
Point of order, we're not here discussing the budget.
we're not
We did
gonna
that
point order
oversight.
out of this
Oh, we
one,
just
Ed.
point of order, Nancy. We're discussing
We are
the
discussing
language
the
to
ballot.
warn a public meeting.
We are discussing the ballot.
The
And our
amounts
voters have a right-
you're discussing are included in the amounts that are listed on
page 2,
the ballot.
There are a couple things shown on the front in the ballot. Voters and taxpayers have every right to see this amount of money, and I'll remind you, that's a whole year's worth. The Ben High won't be done for the first 6 months. Why would our taxpayers pay the owners if they don't have the
This
building
needed to be
ready for 6
debated during
months?
budget work sessions. Mr. Chair, I ask you to bring it back. It's almost 9 o'clock at night.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
Nancy, I understand your reluctance to support this budget, but this is the budget that the board adopted.
And I'll remind you, over a year ago, October, November, and December, I asked multiple times, When will the Benton High go in front of the voters? Everybody sat in silence.
Point of order, we're not
Yes, we're also
talking
not
about the
discussing
Benton
that
High
either.
project.
So
We're
please,
talking about the town meeting warning.
right.
You're correct, and it's missing a massive piece of information.
There are several millions of dollars of items that go into the town, into the dollar amount in the warning. That's one of them. We're not
And
putting
this
them
is-
all in. We're
If
not
the
putting-
voters wish to
we're
see
not
how much
putting
money is
that one in.
allocated to
And this is
particular
the
areas,
first
they
time
may
it's ever
read
been
the
on
budget,
ballot.
which is public.
The public has had
Call the
no
vote.
say.
Please call the vote.
I call the vote.
All right. All in favor of adopting the town warning, I'm sorry, the Town of Bennington 2026 Town Meeting Warning, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
Any abstentions? No. Okay, the
All
warning
right,
is
Tom, I'm just
passed.
going to circulate this for signature.
Thank you, sir.
Is a no vote, does it still require a signature since it's a full board?
As long as we have 4 signatures, we're fine.
All right, on to the manager's report. Mr. Monks.
Okay, I'll try to make this really fast because we are way over, aren't we? Every year, I think you guys, folks that have been here on the board for a few years will remember that we do an annual certificate of highway mileage to send up to the State Agency of Transportation. They use this certificate of highway mileage to calculate the state aid that they grant to the town for highway maintenance. That formula changes from year to year, but it is based on the total mileage. This year we added about, exactly, oddly enough, a half mile of additional roadway, Class 3 roadways, when we took over Duffy Drive, Jane Lane, and Hilder Hill. And basically all I need is for you folks to sign this certificate of highway mileage so that I can send it up to the state and certify the current and additional mileage that the town has. So a motion would be appropriate, but you could also just sign it and that would be fine too.
Can I please hear a motion to accept the annual highway mileage certificate?
I move to accept the certificate.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
For 6, so you have to come to
Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great.
That looks unanimous.
All right. I have just 2 quick other things, not really any action necessary unless you folks are opposed. I think it probably most people have thought about this, but I have asked the staff to prepare a dedication to Stuart of the annual town meeting or annual town report, and provided, so long as the board is not opposed to that, I will proceed with that action to have this annual report include a dedication to Stuart Hurd for his decades of service to the town. So if there's anybody opposed, please let me know, but I will proceed if there.
I can get on board with that.
I think that's absolutely appropriate and a wonderful thought.
It's the least we could do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
And then I do want to announce, I know we floated his name around tonight a little bit, but I do want to announce to the public that David Conwell is Bennington's new planning director. He just started this week, and we are very excited to be working with David. His enthusiasm is infectious, and Shannon and I are already enjoying working with him, and we'll have him before the board for the next meeting so everybody can meet him and ask him any questions you might have. But we're happy to have him on board. And that's all I got for the management.
Which segues into upcoming agenda quite nicely.
Yes.
Do you have anything else on your docket?
I have quite a few things coming up. It's going to be another busy meeting. We will have assuming you folks are okay with proceeding, we will have the Morgan Springs water sale contract before the board on the 9th. I have asked Jonah to prepare a presentation regarding the community survey. We expect to have an audit presentation on the 9th. And there are a couple of resolutions regarding loans that were previously approved to do some feasibility study to mitigate the PFAS issue on the south end of town. And I'm sure there are other things, but
Where do we stand on vacant properties?
vacant properties, I've asked Jonah and Paul to be ready to do that as soon as the 9th, but I didn't want to promise that one, but it will definitely be in February, if not on the 9th. And I'm kind of a little nervous about with the audit presentation and the survey, how much we can fit in on the 9th, but, obviously, Jim, Tom will be meeting, and ultimately be your decision to tell me what you want to have on the 9th versus postpone until later in February. But that's what I have so far. And of course, the policy or procedures for the Economic Development Subcommittee, we'll try to bring that to you on the 9th as well.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more subject? It came up tonight, and Tom and I talked about this. The staff is working on technology that will give the public access regardless of what the weather is.
Yep.
And he said that you'd be ready to share that with us at some point.
Sure. So I did actually I spoke with Jonah and Nick today about, and you can see behind us, we're working on it. Unfortunately, one of the key components that was delivered to us is defective, and we're waiting for a replacement. However, Nick, and I trust his judgment, feels very confident we'll have that technology ready for town meeting day and thereafter. So we would have been ready by now, but that defective equipment slowed us down a little bit. But we also have to train folks like Jonah and Nick, and Shannon's going to get trained on it too. And I might just, look in on the training as well. So I'm reasonably conversant. But so that is coming hopefully in February. We'll be able to use that new equipment.
So that's on an upcoming agenda somewhere.
Yep. All right. Other business.
What about upcoming agendas?
Oh, I looked up and down the table and no one waved at me, so I
covered my upcoming agenda questions.
Yes. You had your upcoming agenda question. Do you have an upcoming agenda question?
Select Board said Rescue Squad said earlier this month they'd be happy to come in next month and talk about the paramedicine program they're proposing or hoping to start.
Yep, we can reach out to them.
And the other is we're a year overdue to have a public discussion about a plan to possibly have the town taxpayers have to help Old Bennington pay to fix their roads and sidewalks. And we need to have a public discussion about that.
I think it's important that we not start out something that says that something is a year overdue, because that misinforms the public, and it makes it sound like this board or staff or some combination dropped a deadline a year ago.
Well,
that didn't happen.
In June of 2024, Stu brought it up in the manager's report.
Nancy, that did not proceed. It's not a live issue.
Ed, could you enlighten us on what happened with that? I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, brother, but you're on the Board of Trustees there.
Put your other hat on.
The village of Old Bennington.
Before somebody changes the state law.
Do I still have the same question in front of me that I had 2 seconds ago? I think so. Okay, thank you. The village of Old Bennington voted not to turn its roads over to the town. I'm not going to answer this again.
Is it totally done now? Nobody is still pushing to try to talk them into revote?
Nobody's talking about it.
We know how you feel about it, Nancy. It has not gotten out of the village of Old Bennington. Thank you.
I also don't understand how it's not a conflict of interest for a person on the select board.
Call VCLT, please, and discuss it with them, because I did, and we're all set. Thank you.
Yep. We did look into that, Nancy, and there is no conflict.
Thank you.
Well,
right.
I'm sorry?
No movement at the moment.
There is no effort on behalf of Old Bennington or the town of Bennington to take over the village of Old Bennington's roads.
There's nothing to discuss.
No one is going to attempt to change the law.
I can't tell you what every single person in Vermont is going to try to do, but I can tell you that this board, this staff, the trustees of the Old Bennington have no current discussions to talk about roadway takeovers or highway takeover.
because an idea is brought does not necessarily mean it's going to go forward. And
That's the beauty of an idea. It got taken up, it got debated, and it got shelved because it was apparently not a good idea at the time, according to all those involved.
So there's no overdue discussion. We're moving on.
And Nancy, it'll get to this board if it ever got that way in some future lifetime.
at which point we would discuss it in public.
Right here.
Anything else? All right, other business. Go ahead.
Dan, was it ever put on the homepage of the town website this month that there were 2 positions for select board the voters would be voting on? So people knew they'd have a chance to get a petition and turn it in by today?
No, that was not put on the town website. I do think that's probably inappropriate because we don't want to be playing politics. I think that's just, I mean, if the select board wanted to do that, they could certainly make a motion to do that, but I don't think the staff should be involved in promoting select board members or et cetera.
Well, no, I'm just saying, we make sure we advertise ahead of time seats that are open on our boards and committees.
So Nancy, if that's what the board wants to direct me to do, I will do that.
The expiration dates of all our seats are listed on the select board page, and it is, again, the responsibility of the public to maintain their
Well, I'm just saying,
education on these subjects.
this is the first time I've ever remembered that nobody announced by January, and that got other people thinking, oh, well, there are people we need to vote for.
Can we bring it back, please?
I
We have no
appreciate that.
control over the state of Vermont laws regarding filing for running on a select board.
And I don't think
Follow
that's because of a lack of information. I think that those that are inclined to run for public office are well aware of when they might do so.
And I think honestly, it's not, your concern is a little bit late, Nancy, because we're past that. Bring it up next year.
And I think a little misplaced. The town clerk is the official in charge of elections. There is information on the website about how to petition to be on the ballot to run for select board and how to follow campaign finance law, and it's the town clerk that's responsible for those pieces. So I think if you have questions about that, maybe you should go talk to her.
Thank you, Jackie. I was not able to articulate that, and that's what I meant by it's not town staff's responsibility to deal with elections. It's the town clerk's responsibility. So thank you for articulating what I could not.
Sarah?
Nothing.
Jim?
Yes, stay warm, everyone.
Jackie?
Yeah, I just wanted to share with the board that I did follow up on some of the conversations that we had about regionalization with the rescue squad, and I've had one initial conversation with BCRC. As with most of these kinds of things, it sounds like step one is an expensive study. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to be incredibly transparent and just put that out there and let y'all know that I did follow up on that.
Clark.
A couple of quick, easy ones. My favorite group of people in town are road crews. My road is clear as a bell when I pulled out today to come here. I don't know what the heck happened, but I got to Route 7 or the West Road, and it's ugly. So RJ's guys continue to do well, and my mailbox, the new mailbox has survived.
Glad to hear that.
And the final thing is, again, at the behest of my friend, when are we going to hear about the dog, the vicious dog policy?
All right. I was going to thank the town road crew for all their work, too, and I'll extend that same thanks to the police and fire and rescue who had to work while we were all sitting at home, cozy. And that's that.
Looking out the window.
While we were looking out the window.
Or watching the Pats game in certain.
I have a TV and a window.
So we do have need for an executive session to discuss contracts. We will not be taking action. So I will bid good night to everyone from the public. Good night, Cat TV
Drive
people.
safely going up that hill.
Good night, public.